We're close. We'll figure that out soon now. We're in a good place.
And based off being in a good place, what will make that final determination? And will we also see a potential rotation of QB 1 and 2?
Yeah, we'll just see who practices better these next week, whatever it takes to win. I don't think there's really a yes or no or what's better, what's not. You go back to the years of Tim Tebow and Chris Lee, worked out pretty well for them. But there's teams that have done it and haven't worked out well, so we'll just figure out what's our best formula to win.
Is there a momentum type thing that you consider that? Can you at least talk about that a little bit to the Michigan fans? They're all wondering about.
I think momentum is just something that's going to happen throughout a game. I don't think it's going to change with the quarterback. It's going to change with the whole team. So it's something that whether you get a stop, whether you don't get a stop, whether you score, whether you don't, those are things that really create the momentum. So for us, it's going to be just going to be a decision on who we feel is going to help us win.
Aaron?
Has Alex been taking the majority of the snaps of the first team?
It's been pretty even. So they've done a really good job of, it's been even snaps throughout. You know, maybe it's one with him, one with next guy. So it's been an even distribution, and those guys done an outstanding job and obviously made it very hard for us to make a decision right now.
Who is that next guy?
Davis Warren.
On the left, Isaiah?
With Jeff Tedford stepping down in the summer, what are the challenges when it comes to trying to prepare for a team when you don't know if there's going to be anything that's drastically different, or just, and also what do you see from Fresno State?
Yeah, I think first of all, whenever you have a new coach, obviously being a new coach, but when you have a new coach, you know, you just there's the unknown. There's the not really sure. I know Coach Skipper has been in the system. He's been there. He's been with them, so he's evolved in the culture, and it's something that's been very successful. So you don't see him diverging too much from what they've done. I know he was the defensive coordinator, so I don't know how much involved he will be with the defense or not. But I can see that there's definitely going to be some wrinkles and things that we got to be prepared for. But they're a good football team. You know, went 9-4 last year. They're tough. They're blue collar. They play extremely hard. So it's going to be a challenge for us to make sure we do the same thing.
In the middle?
Yeah, what stuck out to you about Fresno State's offense? You know, they got a couple of key returners on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I think it starts number one with their quarterback, Mikey Keene. He's not as big as a lot of quarterbacks, but he gets the ball out quick. He's mobile. The offense all goes through him. So for us to be successful against him, it's about how we stop him, how we contain him. He's going to make his throws. He's going to do some really good things. He's going to be able to scramble outside the pocket. So we got to keep him contained and confuse him a little bit with coverages and things we do, and make it messy for him because it really goes through him. And when he's healthy for them, he does a really good job of ball control and control the offense, and you can see that the offense has a lot more confidence with him in the game.
Yeah, and then how do you keep the team focused on Fresno State with the showdown against Texas up next?
I mean, our guys we got a really mature culture, and obviously the past 3 years we've done what we've done, but I think it's all about really today. Like, you can't be worried about 2 or 3 days from now, because then you're going to lose today. So you've got to get the advantage today on what you can do to get better, and we know they're a good football team. Last year they went in Purdue the first game of the year and beat them at their place. So there's no cakewalks anymore in college football. So whoever you play, you got to be ready to go.
On the left, Jennifer?
So how does it feel just that it's game week now? Is there an excitement building, the mentality of the team, and how excited are you to see them finally line up against somebody else?
Yeah, I think the biggest excitement is that they don't have to bash each other's head in against each other for the next whatever week. So that's awesome to see, but it's also awesome to game plan and get into that part of preparing for another opponent and the competitive part of it, and then playing in the stadium with all the fans. We're super excited about that. But for me, it's been awesome. Camp's been phenomenal, just to be out there with the guys and grinding and really building the callus of our team and who we are and what we're going to be, and it's been fun to do that. So ready to take the next step in preparing for this Fresno team.
Obviously, you've done this before in a fill-in position, but are there a little bit of nerves? Is there a little different feel, like this is your team, this is your time?
Yeah, not really nerves. I've kind of stopped getting nervous anymore.
Or describe the emotion, if you can, of what it...
Anxious, ready to go. Ready to practice, ready for meetings. I'm ready. Today's the first day of school for the boys, so we made sure we talked about going to class, being on time, sitting in the front, doing everything right. Talking to a couple younger guys. Hey, make sure you introduce yourself to the teacher. Shake their hand. say hello, because they're like, what? Introduce? Yes, do that. It's going to help you in the long run. So, but watching them as they come back from class and then go to meetings, that's going to be the cool thing to like see them. Oh, you guys had school today. Now we're back into football, and then you get this routine of a game week. So that's been the fun part for me.
On the left, Tony.
Yeah, sure. Back to the quarterback. When we spoke with Curt earlier in camp, he was talking about no matter who wins the job, Michigan's offense is going to be base offense, but these guys do have different skill sets, right? And so there will be packages and things based around them. Is there not sort of a sense of urgency for the team to know sort of which way they're going, or maybe do you guys know and it's just?
No, there's no. I mean, there's always a sense of urgency in everything we do. So regardless of who's in the game, we're going to have a plan for them to be successful. So for us, it's not. The players they just go out there and perform. You know, whatever the play is called, they're excited and they're ready to go. So there's not really a push to make sure we get it done by this time or a dead day. We know we play Saturday, and we'll have somebody ready to take the first snap.
And on the outside, I guess maybe some might have properly or improperly assumed Alex sort of entered as the leader. Were you all anticipating Davis pushing this hard and this?
Oh, yeah.
This level of competition?
I mean, to know Davis Warren, if you know him on a personal level and what he's been through, that kid's a fighter. So you knew it was not just going to be given to anybody. So they had to go earn it, and he's earned the opportunity to compete for it, and that's what he's been doing.
On the left, Ryan.
A top 10 team is already lost this season. Was there any messages or any lessons learned from that you share with your team after watching Florida State go down?
Yeah, that's why I said you got to just prepare. Every week you got to prepare like you're playing the number one team in the country. For us, it's not about the number or the ranking or anything like that. We have to go prepare to win that game. And whoever you're playing, it's a faceless opponent. You got to make sure you're prepared every day to go win that game. So for us, the message is pretty simple. They saw it. So there's not much we have to say about it.
On the left, Brad.
How do you replace over almost 12 starters on a roster where a lot of people say that new teams like Oregon joining the conference, Ohio State loading up the way they have, you're trying to compete in a conference that's going to be just as competitive, if not more competitive than it was last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think the number one thing we've done here and we will continue to do is develop. So you're going to have a lot of depth. Those guys, a lot of those guys that are going to be starters on Saturday have played. Whether they played here and played at other places, they've all played in college football. So it's not like we lack that much experience. It's just they have to play together. And they've done that in training camp, and we started to build that synergy on offense and on defense, and you can start to see that take shape. So excited to see them on Saturday.
Chris.
Coach, what kind of camp has Jimmy Rolder had, and what have you seen from the backup linebackers?
Yeah, I mean, he's had a great camp. We were just talking about him the other day. He's healthy, he feels good, and he's playing to that potential. You look back in 2022, he started the Ohio State game. So that's a guy that has all the talent in the world to be a top linebacker in the country, and he's really had a really good camp.
And what's the safety rotation looking like right now?
Right now, obviously, McCarry's been phenomenal. Quentin Johnson's been great, but you got Zeke Berry in there. You got Wes Walker in there. You got Jaden Mangum. You got Brandon Hillman, who's really taken his level of play to the next level because he's got some elite traits and ability that people haven't seen yet, and we're super excited. It's finally getting there for him. But him and a guy like Zeke Berry, who's really all he needed was the confidence. And it'd be funny because I'm talking to Rod, I talked to Will, it's like, who's the guy like in the back end? And this was in the spring, like, who are you guys most excited about this? It's Zeke. And to watch his evolution as a player, he's made some plays in camp, just wild plays, and they're like, yeah, that's routine of his skill set. So he's really stepped it up, so that room is super deep and ready for it.
On the right, Angelique.
Sherrone, when you have two quarterback options who haven't started, how much does that limit what you can do on offense, at least initially? Do you slow it down for them? I mean, what do you do with two guys who haven't been in there?
Yeah, I think you just have to figure out what their strengths are, which we've done in camp. So there's a menu of stuff that we can do with each guy, and it's not like both of them can't throw and both of them can't run. So we just do it differently with different guys in the game. So I feel like we have a really good menu of plays, and both of them that can execute the offense fully. So it's just going to figure out who's going to do that consistently over these next couple of days.
And how different does the offense look with Alex and then with Davis in?
Not crazy different. There's just things you can do with each guy that you'll change and manipulate, but it's not super different. So we're still going to be who we are and play our football.
On the left, Austin.
I have another question, but are you planning to watch the Netflix documentary that comes out tomorrow?
I'll be watching film, so I'll watch film first.
And at wide receiver, have you seen anybody take hold of that number 3 wide receiver spot, or do you expect that to be more by committee?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a competition as we continue through this camp. But guys like Kendrick Bell, guys like C.J. Charleston who's coming, Amarion Walker, Fred Moore, it's going to be all those guys that continue to compete as we go through the season, as we go through this camp and prepare for this first game and we go to the next game. So we'll see. We'll see who's going to really take that, solidify it. But right now we feel like we got great options at all of them.
Right here, Charlie.
Sherrone, you're obviously focused on your team and your players, but have you taken a moment of personal reflection on what this moment and what Saturday is going to mean for you?
No, I haven't. It's been like literally, I've been asked that before. Is like all I care about is the players. Like I don't think about myself. I don't want to. Dave asks me to do stuff all the time. I'm just like why do I have to talk about myself? All I care about is the players. That's it. That's all I care about. So I haven't looked at it in my perspective. I just want them to go out there and be successful and have the time of their life.
On the right, Aaron.
Center and right tackle, can you just speak to the guys like vying for the job and has someone won the job?
Yeah, I think right now at center, we've got a couple guys. We got Dom Gadis, we got Greg Crippen, and we got Raheem Anderson. And right now it's still a competition. So we'll see who does it. I think Crippen and Dom have been the top 2 in camp so far. So we'll see how they, compete this week. And then at right tackle, Andrew Gentry, Evan Link have been the top 2 candidates there. So we'll see what happens this week. But I feel like we'll have more of a insight and cement as we go through the rest of the week.
Could you speak to Dom and Evan just what they've done to show you that they got in the mix?
Yeah, I think just one from a knowledge of the playbook standpoint and knowing what to do and how to do it. Both have the talent, both have the ability, but the toughness and the mental toughness to withstand all the strain and as you go through camp and different things happen and be able to be flexible, play right, play left, play center, play guard, and be one of the best 5, because that's all we're going to do is try to find the best 5. That's how we've built the line, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
On the right, Noah.
Yeah, you talked about the safeties a little bit, but at cornerback, who do you see lining up opposite Will Johnson?
Yeah, right now it'll be Jair. Jair's really taken a hold of that position and done a really good job. Shug, he's been phenomenal, tough, just gritty dude, one of Ken Kaki's finest, and he's been great. So I think it'll be him on Saturday. They'll line up across from Will Johnson.
Next question on the left, Reiner.
Yeah, you talked about turning the page, but how hard is it when you have stuff like this documentary coming out and also the draft, or the NOA, being delivered? It's back in the headlines, I guess, the remnants of last season. How hard is it just to turn the page, I guess, towards the season?
Not hard. Not when you're here with the players and you're getting ready for the game. So you can write about that. You guys can write about that all you want, but we're just worried about playing.
Got time for a few more questions if you guys have it. Start left, Chris.
Arlen Klein had a good spring. How's he done this fall?
He's been great. Yeah, he's really cemented himself as that third guy with Colston and Max. He's had an outstanding camp, so ready to put his talents on display for sure.
Always, I want to thank you guys for coming out and covering Penn State football. We appreciate you guys being here. Feel like you blink and we're back. It's gone quickly. I think when you talk about winter workouts, spring ball, summer training, training camp.
Just hope they're proud of the product that they see on the field.
I think we have maximized it as much as we
flying around
possibly
like our hair's on
can.
fire. We're gonna play
the
fast.
new rule changes. I think we've done a really good job preparing
we're gonna do everything we've done in the past,
for some of the
but we're
technology
trying to take the level
changes
of play
as
up
well
to
as
the
some
next
of the
level.
rule changes that have allowed us to make adjustments and make adjustments quickly. I think the new rule changes in terms of what you're able to do with the players and what you're able to do with the staff over the last couple of years, I think has really helped. If you're in a position to hire a new coordinator or a new position coach,
those two
you're able to get a lot of
cemented
work done in that period of time. So all those things have been valuable. But training camp was good. It was competitive. It was physical. It was tough, like it was designed to be. And now we're in a position, I think, over the last week and a half, we've cut back to make sure that the guys feel good, that their bodies feel good, and that their legs are back. and now getting into a traditional game week. We did, as you guys know that have covered us for a while, we do have like the bonus West Virginia practices at the end of training camp, but now we're obviously in a traditional game week. So looking forward to it, excited about it, and look forward to answering you guys' questions.
We'll start with Rich Scarcella with the Reading Eagle, and Frank Bodani, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Hi, Rich. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, thanks. James, with the news this morning, I was wondering what your reaction was to Pat's contract extension, and what does his presence mean to you and the program going forward?
Well, I think first of all, I think stability in college athletics and college football has a chance to be a differentiator like probably never before. I think it's always been a differentiator if you look at certain programs across the country, but now I think it's magnified even more with the amount of turnover that you see. So I think that's really important. He knows Penn State. He understands, college athletics, obviously, and the changes that we're under right now. And that stability at the lead position in our athletic department is critical. So I think was strategically the right thing to do. And, we had an ICA department meeting this morning, and he announced it there. And I know a lot of coaches and people are very, very happy about it. I think the biggest thing is we got a man leading the department that is a competitor. And I'm talking about a fierce competitor in everything he does. And that's important. You guys have heard me say before about the importance of having people in, I hate using this expression, but, having somebody in the foxhole with you. And whether that is women's soccer or whether that is fencing or whether that is college football and wrestling, that's important to have somebody that can relate, that understands the challenges, that wants to come up with solutions. One of the things that I think that stood out to me is Pat and Vinny's ability to find solutions for problems that we've had or challenges that we've had for a number of years. And then I think the other thing is even bringing some ideas to the coaches in the department without the coaches having to come up with those ideas. So I think it's really good for the university. I think it's really good for the athletic department. And I think it's the right thing to do strategically for Penn State moving forward. So I'm very, very happy about it.
Frank Bodani, and then Mike Gross, you're on deck.
Hey, good afternoon, James. How are you?
Hey, Frank. I like the new names that we got going on up here. You didn't tell me about that, Greg and Chris.
Very helpful. Very helpful.
Well, I know who you are, Frank, obviously, but still nice to have it up there.
Thank you. So looking at your offense from the end of spring to now, what position group do you think you've seen the most improvement, the most development? How does that look for you, especially going into your opener here?
Yeah. I'd probably say wide receiver, and but I would also say there's a little bit at other positions that you can make the same argument. But I'd say wide receiver. I would say quarterback. I would say offensive line, specifically, obviously, with the offensive lineman that we lost to the NFL last year. I'd say those three positions. I think everybody had, pretty good idea who we were at tight end and who we were at running back. So I would say those three positions, and really the three positions we needed to, right? So there's been a lot of energy poured into those positions. A lot of strategy about how do we position those areas to be the most successful. And so far, I think what we've seen in training camp, not just for myself, but really coaches on both sides of the ball, we all feel that way.
Let's go to Mike Gross, and then Mark Wogenrich, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Hey, Mike. Good. How are you?
Good, thanks. About the on the in-helmet communication thing, I've heard you talk about what you think of that rule change a couple times, but maybe I missed it. I have not heard you say a whole lot about how implementing it is going. What defensive player, for example, is going to have the helmet? What special teams player is going to have the helmet? How you're finding? Are there problems with it? Do you feel like it's working well? Just run down how it's going.
Yeah, so I think, we're probably like most people. You're going to have the quarterback and the Mike linebacker, wearing those positions. I think that's how most NFL, teams are run. That's how I think most colleges are going to use it. We started early, which I think has been helpful. DV Sports been really good kind of working with us. We've had them at our last couple scrimmages actually running it for us. Very similar to how it will be on game day. So I think that's been valuable. Doing it with crowd noise has been valuable. Deciding how much are you going to continue to signal, because that's still an issue, right? Are you going to huddle on offense? If you're going to huddle, then the quarterback can communicate with everybody. If you're not going to huddle, how do you still get that communication between 53 yards, from one receiver to the other, essentially. And the same thing with the corner. So having a lot of conversations with NFL teams, some trial and error ourselves, incorporating noise, for our offense when we're on the road, and then our defense for when we're at home, all those things. But I think it's been good. I think it's one of these things, the more times we do it, the better we're at it. We've been doing it at practice, even without the DV Sport people here. And that's been good. It's not the same as obviously when DV Sports here and they're cutting the mics off after, 15 seconds left on the clock, those types of things. So there's things that you got to get worked through. It's one-way communication, as you guys know. So sometimes you've made the call, and how does the Mike linebacker let the coach know that he's gotten the call? You think he's gotten the call and he hasn't gotten the call, those things. Because as we all know, these things aren't going to go perfect. So then also, do you have backup plans in terms of signaling or in terms of wristband? All those types of things. Are you okay? Okay, yes. Since COVID, it kind of makes everybody uneasy. Yeah. So, Mike, does that answer your question? Awesome. Thank you.
Let's go to Mark Wogenrich and then Johnny McGonigal. You're on deck.
At least it makes
Hi,
me
James.
uneasy.
How you doing?
Makes me uneasy. Does it make you guys uneasy? Yeah. Mark.
How are you?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Besides uneasy, good. Thanks.
Yeah, we got somebody like coughing over and over and over in here. That brings up a funny story, Mark. I got a second. So me and Manny and Frank Leonard, I think you guys know this, we went and visited the Patriots. And we were there for 2 days, and we're in meetings with their coaches watching film. And Frank Leonard got sick, and he is coughing and coughing and coughing and coughing. And their coaches are looking at him like, hey, buddy, you want to get out of here? And then I'm uncomfortable, and I'm trying to kind of make eye contact with Frank, like, get out of here. Like, this is Bill Belichick. The whole staff, right? And finally Frank's like, hey, if you guys don't mind, I'm gonna go back to the hotel. And everybody's like, do we mind? We want you to go back to the hotel. So you just reminded me of Frank Leonard and the Patriots story. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Well, I hope they invite you back after that.
Yeah, we've never got an invitation since.
You mentioned a couple times, including today, how tough camp was. How did the team emerge physically from training camp, and then where do you stand in terms of injuries that you would classify as season ending?
Yeah, we got some bumps and bruises, like you always do. I would say, really kind of no different. It's funny, you have the meeting every year with the leadership council, and they get to a point where they've had enough, and I think they forget we've had this meeting every year. They're like, Coach, I think we're at a point, and I'm like, yeah, we hear this every year. So it's good feedback to hear for myself and Chuck Losey and for Andrew Nelson as well as running our sports science department. That feedback's really important for me to hear from the players. But we're back in a good place like we have been. You're always going to have a few things that are lingering that we're still waiting to determine. But overall good. And then, when it comes to injuries, the guys that you guys have asked me specifically about that you haven't seen at practice, I'll answer those questions. But in terms of, big picture, I've told players and their parents, like always, I don't make announcements unless I'm asked a specific question. And then I talk to them and their families first to make sure that they're comfortable with it. But I don't think in 11 years I've just come out and made a blanket statement on who's out. And the other thing is, it's hard to say anybody has a season-ending injury. I usually term them as long-term, because even the guys that do have injuries that's going to keep them out for a while, we think a lot of those guys we should have back, for the playoffs or late in the season too.
Last question from Zoom is Johnny McGonigal, and then we'll go to Mark Brennan.
James, how are you?
Good, Johnny. How are you?
Good, good. You mentioned the offensive line earlier in terms of, groups that improved, and specifically to right tackle. How would you describe how the competition during camp went there? And you come out of camp going into week one with a guy who you feel comfortable starting or naming a starter?
Yeah. We feel like, the right tackle battle has been healthy and positive in terms of the amount of work that those two have gotten in. And as you know, that's Donko and that is Rhule. We feel like both of those guys that we can play with and win with, and think both of those guys will play. I know a lot of times you guys are asking for specific answers at this point, but we haven't even told the players at this point, what the rotation is going to be like. That's usually a conversation for Johnny, like yourself, and a lot of the people that have covered us for a while. We usually have that conversation as a staff on Thursday, and then have another conversation at the hotel. And obviously the players at that point would be aware of it as well. But at this point, we're still, practicing and making evaluations to determine rotation. Typically starters, we're in a pretty good place where we're at. But in terms of the rotation of how much guys are going to play, that's really to be determined based on how they practice this week. But I would expect to see a lot of both Anthony and Rhule.
Over on the right, Mark.
How's it going, James?
Good, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing great. You talked about the importance of stability when discussing Pat. This is your 11th year. It's kind of the exception anymore for head coaches. Where do you think the program has made the most progress during your tenure?
Yeah, I'm proud of, really a ton of areas. In terms of our staff, our coaching staff. We're able to hire and retain our staff like we weren't able to before. You don't really see us losing guys for lateral moves anymore. And that used to happen in the past. That's problematic, for the type of program that we want to have. As you guys know, this was stated early on, facility-wise. I didn't think, we're in a great place. There was some resistance to that early on, but we've been able to get all that done. And thank God, because if you didn't get it done before now, you're not going to do it moving forward. The other thing I would say that's kind of more recent is our training table that we have this year, our football-specific training table that we have. I think we're probably the only top 10 program maybe in the country that did not have a football training table. This is our first year for having it, one that's in the facility and part of the football building. I think that's been a huge win for us. So, there's a ton of areas, academically, athletically. I could go on and on. The list I think is significant. But as everybody knows, all that matters now at this point of the season and of the year is how we play. So our focus now is directly on West Virginia and making sure that we're in the best position to go win at a place that I got a ton of respect for. I think Neil Brown's done a great job. I think it's a very, very challenging place to play. I think, for opener, that's going to create some challenges and issues for us. And a team that I think is feeling really, really good about themselves and has a ton of confidence. They won 9 games. They really should have won 10 games. That Houston game was a very, very tough loss. In my mind, they played well enough to win 10 games. They end the season, I think, winning 5 out of their last 6 games, including the bowl game. So they got a lot of positive momentum. The quarterback played really well. So our focus is totally on that right now. But, things that will impact this season, I think the training table is a significant win. Keeping our guys big and strong throughout a challenging season, through a long season and a longer season, and more competitive season with our schedule than maybe Penn State's ever had. That is as big of a win that I've been fighting for 10 years, and we're finally able to get done with Pat and Vinny.
Audrey?
Hi, James.
Hey, Audrey.
You guys have mentioned Liam Clifford a lot of times this preseason as somebody who's kind of turned that corner. What has he kind of done? And then along kind of that same position group, Caden Saunders, what kind of camp did he have?
Yeah, so Liam, and I know you guys hate when I answer things this way, but it's really not one specific area. It's just kind of overall. I think he's more confident. I think he's more comfortable. He's much more consistent, which is what it's all about for all these guys at this level. I look at his college career in a lot of ways like his high school career. He just kept getting better every single year and really had a dominant senior year, had a really good junior year. And I think his college career is going about the same way. He's faster than I think people give him credit for. He's got a big catch radius. And I think he's got a chance to be a playmaker for us this year. He's shown some flashes of that in the past. He comes from a football family, as you guys know, very, very well. It's funny, his parents were at the parent meeting the other day, and, one of the things we try to do is get all the parents to come to the parent meeting, and some of the parents were like, well, I came last year, so I'm not coming this year. And the Cliffords have been to 8 straight parent meetings, which is crazy. I almost had them get up and run the meeting. But he just is really matured. I think maturity in college football has a chance to win you games probably in a similar way that it's impacted college basketball. When you could have an older veteran team or an older veteran position. And I think a lot of those things, show up with Liam, but it would not surprise me at all. And we are anticipating on him having a really good year for us. Caden, I'm sorry. Yeah, Caden's got some bumps and bruises that he's missed some time, so we're working through that right now. And, obviously we're hopeful that he'll be able to go this week and be full go and be able to factor back in for us.
John?
Hey, James.
Hey, John.
Staying with the wide receivers, how many wide receivers do you think you have that are ready to play on Saturday, and how close is that to where you wanted it to be coming into this season?
Yeah, I think, at every position, I think you guys have heard me mention before, you really would like a 2.5 deep, at every position. So if you're talking D tackles, you would like 5. And then I think at wide receiver, when you talk about being an 11 personnel set, having, you're talking about 2 deep at 2 of the positions and then a swing guy in some ways. And I think we're close to that. I think if you look at kind of across the board, a guy like Mekhi Flowers, I think, has really stepped up for us. I think Tyler Johnson has really stepped up for us. I think Anthony Ivy has really stepped up for us. And that is a critical group for us, right? And I'd like it to be for game 1, but the reality is, even if it could be for some of those guys in Game 3 and Game 4 and Game 5. And that's what big discussion we had this morning as a staff meeting. We got to identify guys that we say, okay, they may be not like ready, for whatever reason, physically, mentally, or emotionally today, but these guys, we need them to be ready by Game 5 of the season. So, okay, it's obvious, to pinpoint and be able to single out the guys that are ready right now. Who are the guys that we need to make sure that we continue to pour into them and continue to develop them, that they will be ready, come Game 5 of the season or somewhere around there. So those are guys that I think really are going to need to step up for us, but have shown enough, that you're excited about what they're going to be. And I would say Tysier Denmark as a new player is in that conversation as well.
Back left, Andrew.
Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Curt. Pat McAfee, obviously a former WVU player. He has a very large platform, and he spent a lot of time last week talking about this game and talking about Penn State. I was curious if you use any of his remarks or anything like that in a locker room setting or with players, or how you deal with kind of outside noises from platforms like that who command such an audience.
Well, first of all, I love Pat McAfee and his energy and enthusiasm for sports and specifically college football. I think he's been good for college athletics and sports in general. I think he's fun, right? I think his ability to speak freely is unique and fun in a lot of ways. For us, it's a fine line, right? I think it's very similar to the old billboard material. I want to make sure that our guys don't say anything and our staff doesn't say anything that creates billboard material, because for some people that motivates them, right? And I want to make sure that I'm not talking out of both sides of my mouth with our staff and our players, because I also strongly recommend our players getting off of social media, especially in season, which is easier said than done. It's amazing how many of them say it, oh, well, I'm good with it. And then a year later, like, yeah, I'm probably going to get off social media this year. I'd like for more of them to take the advice on the front end before it. No different than kind of me handing my phone over to Destiny, during the season and let her manage those types of things. I think is the healthy way to go. But it's funny, KJ Winston came up to me yesterday at practice and said, Coach, you got a couple things up on the monitors. You're telling us to get off social media, but you got a couple things up on the monitors for us to see. And I said, but here's the difference. When you guys are on social media, you're reading whatever comes in. There's no filter. And what we can do is I can have Destiny or Greg Kincaid or Chris Peterson pull things out to show to me and strategically say, we want to use these things. So there's a filter there. And when I said that to KJ, goes, that makes sense. That makes sense. So we do a little bit of it, but not a lot of it. For those very reasons. I want to make sure that what we're saying is consistent, but I kind of look at it like old bulletin board material. Now we're a true bulletin board material team in terms of we like just cut out what's in the newspaper, where there's some staffs and coaches like get on their computer and create stories that never existed to try to motivate their team. We're not going to do that. There's enough out there that you can find it on your own.
Neil.
Thanks for the newspaper plug. That's cool.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Just curious on when Julian committed, that created a stir, how he's done, what you expect, and have you picked a place kicker?
Yeah, he's done from one extreme to the other, huh? He's done really well. And I think as much as anything, back to that veteran presence that I've talked about, he has brought that to our team. Is another veteran guy that knows college football, that knows our conference, and as you guys know, knows Penn State very well, and we know him very well. So I think that's been a real positive. I was telling him yesterday, I was walking across campus, and some woman came running up to me. She was checking her son into the dorm as a freshman, and she's best friends with Julian Fleming's mom, and came up. We had a nice conversation and took pictures. So it's really cool for him to be back home and playing for Penn State, I think that's a real positive for a lot of reasons. But I think you see the same thing in his play. You know, he understands football. He's got a tremendous football IQ. He's a big, strong, physical, tough guy who we think is going to make the tough catches for us. Has been throughout his career a very physical blocker, also a very good special teams player. And I just think he's one of these guys, again, as a veteran, older player, he's very intentional about what he has to do to be successful and how he practices and how he approached his offseason on the jugs machine and all those things. So I think he's been really good for our receiver room. I think he's been really good for our team, and we're happy he's here. At place kicker, again, you know, kind of very similar to my response about other positions. We got a pretty good idea. We think we got 3 guys that we can win with, but we have not, you know, made any announcements. And this week we'll factor into that. I don't want to say something to you guys that we haven't announced to the team or told the kickers yet. I will say this: all 3 of them come within 2 percentage points on kicks. I'm talking, I want to say it's like 85, 84, and 83% in practice in kicks. So it's not like it's a slam dunk, you know, even my answer to you right now. So, you know, we'll still evaluate that this week and then, you know, make some decisions.
Obviously, a lot to be excited about. Let's just, you know, we can start, you know, obviously today's Monday night, but tomorrow night we open up volleyball. We've got top 10 matchup with volleyball, so wishing them luck against Louisville. That would be tomorrow night, and a lot of other things within the athletic department that are really exciting too, right? I mean, obviously season tickets, you know, our you know, fundraising for our indoor. So there's a lot of internal excitement for the start of what we call our season. So I'll get that out of the way quick just to make sure that everybody kind of understands there's a lot more going on than just what's going to happen on the 30th. But for us, I think that this is the longest week of the year within your entire season. So within the entire program, right? I mean, whether it's off season, whether it's spring football, that week 1 buildup is the longest week of the year. And I think our kids would probably say the same thing, right? You go through fall camp, then you kind of switch gears a little bit as we came back to campus, and you're still not into game mode, and then you all of a sudden go into game mode, and you do it a few days early, just trying to make a break between fall camp and things like that. And then this week becomes incredibly, incredibly long. Today's a Monday, which will have a Wednesday practice, so try to figure all that stuff out. As you try to build your routine, school hasn't begun, so that's what I mean by for our kids. You know, for our coaches, it's always week 1 is a long week. When school's not in, it's even a longer week. So Friday can't get here fast enough, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And I think for us, that's kind of the key, right? Is week 1 in college football is different than any other sport, I think, out there. Why? Because we have no real preseason game. We have no scrimmage, right? It's probably the only sport out there, the high-level sport, that you don't have some idea, some type of scrimmage, some type of competition with another group that you can, you know, get a little bit of a better idea of where you are and how you do things and how you handle things. So, you know, this is I think my 24th year, somewhere right around there in college coaching, and I don't know that it's going to change, and it hasn't changed. So you'd think that, well, Coach, you ought to be used to this by now, you know, but I don't know that you do get used to that. Each and every year, week 1 is so unique, as we saw even in week 0 last week. There's a lot of unknowns, not just because they're college football kids, because they're 18 to 22-year-olds, but also because of those other things we talked about. No opportunity to scrimmage, whether it's in the spring, in fall, you know, as many turnovers and you know, transfers and things like that a lot of programs have. So that week 1 there's a lot of build up to it, and you know, we're getting close. We're excited about that, but you know, we've still got some work to do before we get to the 30th.
I had never really thought about this before, the scrimmage thing. You have a voice in this sport. Have you made a passionate plea, or what are the cons against it?
I don't know. I think that obviously there's a lot of change in college football. There's a lot of change coming in our landscape. So I think that it could bring about some some different opportunities, right? And like I said, it's been 24 years. You'd think you'd get used to that, but that's what makes week one so uniquely different, right? There's nothing in the spring. There's nothing in the fall. And then you get thrown into it. Now, they may look at it and say, well, now that there's a 12-team playoff, not that every game doesn't matter, but there's a little bit of a difference, to even your first few weeks. But I would envision as we move forward in this landscape that hopefully we can find a way, whether it's something in the spring or something in fall camp to, simulate maybe what they do at the next level. But again, it's really hard to spend a whole lot of time and voice a whole lot of opinions on things like that when, we've got a lot of work to do ourselves. So I try to stay off of rules committees. I try to stay off of some of those other committees just from the nature of, dealing with 120 guys here. That's the most important thing.
Talking about changes here, Coach, the addition of the tablets and the intercom and the headphone or in the helmet.
Yep.
How does that impact things for you guys? And if I'm not mistaken, you guys can take it a little bit farther with the tablets than they can at the professional level.
Yeah, I think the professional level, all they have is still pictures. Now, I don't know how far deep that gets to. Is there's 100 still pictures on each play? Maybe they can kind of make it look like it's an actual play. We had it in the bowl game, so we got an opportunity to kind of see what that was like a little bit in the bowl game. Recognize some things that we got to do better from spending a game with that. And then haven't had a whole lot of time. We had one kind of mock game where we had the opportunity to bring in all the technology in one setting. So it's definitely different. I think that you've got to have a plan for it, whether it's the headset, whether it's the technology. But I also think that it can be overwhelming too. So we got to try to figure out what that balance is. Each kid can handle some things a little bit different, right? Do you need to watch every single play? Do you need to be, evaluating yourself on every single snap? I think that's probably not going to be the best thing for everybody, but it does give us an opportunity to make sure we're using it in the best way. How can it be an advantage for us and our program and our kids? In particular on game day. And I think obviously we feel really good about the plan of where we are and how we're going to use it. But there'll obviously be some things that can adapt and adjust as we get rolling.
Coach, do you have an update on James Thompson and, how long he might be out with the status?
No, it doesn't look like James is probably going to make it. I don't know that we'll have him for the year. There's a lot of things that are still, we got to wait and see, right? I mean, I don't know if it's a 4 to 5 month thing. He had surgery, I think, last week. We really haven't really talked about it, but it's a big loss. It's tough. And, a guy in his senior year that has been through so many things and has meant so much to us. I mean, obviously over his time here, but even in this off season, and our ability to continue to grow and do the things we want to do, and kind of really. Put guys in leadership roles, and he's done an unbelievable job and fired up and ready to go. And, the unfortunate thing happens, and now he'll be in a little bit of a different role for us this year. I don't know that we'll have a chance to get him back.
Luke, you mentioned that the 12-team playoff and the way things are changing this year. I know you have experience in a 4-team field. You know how hard that is. In what ways do you think a 12-team field changes things for a program like Wisconsin as you go into a season in this new era?
I don't know that you look at it any different. If you go, you're guaranteed to be in if you put yourself in that four-team selection. But I do think that in the long run, what it's going to do, it's going to make the season, the length of the season, the later games in the year become, I not say that they're not important, but more important in the eyes of everybody around college football. And I think that's what will create a greater excitement even about where college football is, right? I mean, sometimes late in the year, they're all looking for we only have so many matchups this week. And, there's so many more games that are going to have an impact on what those 12 teams look like that I think it's a great thing for college football. I think it's a great thing for the programs, because if something does happen early in the year, you're not out of things. And, again, in year one, we'll all see how that all works. How does it really balance out as we move forward? Where do those championship teams go, or how do the AQs go? I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be, probably ironed out and will be ironed out in the next probably year or two with all of that. But I think what it does as a whole, it makes college football better. It gives you opportunities to play games like we got on week 3 where you're not overly worried about, hey, this is the whole season because you're playing a week 3 game against a top 5 opponent, and all that puts us on the outside because, if you're not undefeated, then you're not going to have a chance. And so I think in the long run, it does a lot more for college football. I think it does a lot more in just the landscape of keeping kids involved and maybe not opting out and things like that, because they all want an opportunity to not only play in the playoffs but play for championships. And as we've gotten smaller and tighter in college football, I'm not saying the bowls have gone away, because they haven't, but the importance sometimes of the bowls and what has made college football, I think, so great. To have successes at the end of the year and to have those opportunities, I think we're opening up a new avenue where we're going to give a lot more opportunities for a lot of different teams, and it'll be better for college football in the long run.
Just wondering what you've seen from Ches during this preseason, off-season, just what it says for him to come back after all the injuries he's kind of dealt with over the years.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, injuries are injuries, and how people deal with them are really key and critical. And Ches has had his, right? He's had his ups and he's had his downs, and he's had these really tough moments. And, for us, more than anything, obviously we love Ches and we want him to have an incredible season. We want him to have, all the things that he expected and expects. The thing about it is building that confidence from coming back from a lot of those injuries. And I can say this, that he's in a much different place from what I've known even from last year. And I mean that because in spring football, we went live with Ches. And it wasn't something that maybe we thought we were going to do. And I think it started to build his confidence when all of a sudden he was able to go live and get that feel back. And then in fall camp, we went live with him again in there and have the true ability to, kind of test yourself and see where you are. And I really do believe I've seen, he's had a great attitude. He's worked his tail off in everything that we've done. But that confidence level of truly carrying the football, truly making plays, truly taking care of it, when you do some of those things we did in fall camp and let him go in live situations, I think it's really kind of helped build his confidence, not just in his leg, but in all things that tends to get taken away sometimes when you go through as many tough injuries as he has. So I'm excited to see him play. I'm excited for him to, kind of let loose again. And I really do think that his confidence level and stuff is in a really good place.
You've said previously what you look for in a quarterback, leader and winner. I'm curious how you evaluate it beyond the scoreboard and beyond that leadership stuff. Are there metrics you look at in terms of what makes a quarterback, what means he had a good day or a good season?
Well, it's hard. Good days can be up and down, and then that's all a part of it. I think the day after sometimes not good days is really a great evaluating stick. Evaluation, kind of meter to see, hey, how do they handle those things? Because it's going to happen, whether it's in a series or in a game. And the consistency, to me, is what has to be in your quarterback position. And whatever that means, whatever that looks like, I think that's why it was a little bit more critical for us to, so to speak, name. Not name publicly always the starting quarterback early on, but I think it was really important for us to kind of put those guys in the situation that we thought it was going to be earlier on, to see how they were going to be able to handle it, see how their leadership abilities were grow, see how that relationship amongst, Tyler and Braden, how that flourishes too once all of a sudden some things are, kind of labeled, right? Whether it's a 1 and a 2 or a 1A and a 1B. So that part of that position is so critical. And like I said, where we are right now is a really good spot. I think both those guys have done an unbelievable job. You have seen a difference in Tyler since that time, and I mean that even not as ups and down, not as even as emotional, but truly being a little bit more vocal, standing in front of that group a little bit more. And then you've seen Braden kind of flourish a little bit too. Obviously disappointed, when all of a sudden you kind of name Tyler as a starter, but not at a point where he didn't still become a really healthy competition within that room and a relationship where they can help each other out. So I think on both sides of it, you kind of look at to say, okay, what does this look like, right? This position is so special and so unique that no matter what you do, you've got to have a guy in leadership positions at that spot. And I think they've done a really good job. Now, obviously, come Friday night, it starts to be the other tests and the ultimate test to what they do. But they do understand that there's a lot of other people around them, and I do feel like they understand and know that, it's not just on them.
Luke, what would you say are the biggest differences from where Joe Brunner is in his game from the start of last season to now?
Well, it was hard because last season Joe didn't get a whole lot of opportunities. He was a guy that you definitely noticed, whether he was a starter or not last year. in my mind, always had the makeup of what you were looking for as an offensive lineman in the, in the toughness department and the physicality department and the way he played the game and the energy and the emotion he played with. It was just unfortunate that he didn't get a whole lot of opportunities, right? Not many years you could ever say that your starting five play the entire season without, having an injury until obviously Jack rolled his ankle in the bowl game. But I was impressed. I was impressed that, even the difficult times he had to go through when he wasn't getting the opportunity to play, that you still saw the things that you wanted to see from an offensive lineman, right? And his grit and his toughness. And then obviously with the opportunity starting in the spring and all the way through fall camp, I think he's a guy that went on the play hard board, and that's not an easy thing, right? Because at that position in particular, you're going to be on some ISO cams, and we're going to evaluate every single step of what it is that you do on a daily basis. And so I think he brings a little something different to the rest of that crew, and I don't mean just the youth behind him, but a little bit of an edge as well.
Hey, everybody. Great to see so many familiar faces. Thanks for coming out. Just got off the practice field, so a little casual, but we can make do with this. Great to see all your faces. Football season's right around the corner, 10 days away from kickoff. Really excited. Really like this football team. I'm sure you have a lot of questions, so I did enough in my opening presser at the Big Ten Media Day. What was the time? 10:40, 10:50? Not bad. Some of the false reports out there is 14:50 is inaccurate. It was 10:40, I think. Not to say anybody in here did that, just saying, heard some rumors. So we'll get to questions. How's that? Good to see everybody.
On Tuesday, you talked about Thursday maybe being a scrimmage for some evaluations. How did that go? What'd you see?
Yeah, it went great. We've done a few things. We've had another scrimmage. We've had a mock game where we go through all special teams situations, do it under the lights. We were going to have one in the stadium on Thursday, but weather made us come inside. But we did the same type of thing. I love this football team. I love the depth of this football team. I love the competition of this football team. We have more competition this year in 2024 than we've had since I've been the head coach here at Minnesota. And that's a credit to our staff, our recruiting, the players, the way they've kind of taken on this whole year. So hopefully I answered your question. We got a lot of questions answered. But it's not about just answering questions. Okay, you're number one. We have a lot of different starters. We do. We have a lot of guys that are going to be splitting time. So they're both starters. And so I think that's what's really healthy about this football team as we keep going forward.
What positions could you see splitting time as a possibility?
Well, I think when you look at defensive line, I think there's going to be rotations that continue to happen just like that normally is. We just have more people that are going to be rotating, which is good for our D-line. Offensive line, you can see at some positions we're going to be doing that as well. Wide receiver, we're going to be rolling some people in. Tight end, you're going to be rolling some people in. You want to be able to do it. We have so many different packages on defense too, so it's hard to sit there and go, hey, here's the 11 guys. From our nickel package to our dime package to all these other packages that we have, as we talked earlier about the personnel that our defense has, I think that helps as we continue to go into game one. I'm not going to tell you all those different packages, but it's really fun to be able to plug and play based on what these guys can do and put different combinations on the field, whether it's first and second down or third down.
Type of development have you noticed from the corner room throughout camp?
Yeah, tremendous growth. I was just having a discussion with one of our coaches about that. You have Wally and you have Ethan. Both those guys played a ton of football. But when you start to look at like Zaquan Bryant's development, you're really pleased with what he's been able to do, especially for such a young kid. He got a chance to play in the bowl game, but that has helped him exponentially get to where he is right now. We've got a lot of other guys in that mix at that corner position. Ryan Kelly's had a really good camp. He's big, long, strong. He's gained a bunch of weight. And then we've got a bunch of guys who can play a lot of different positions, whether they slide down inside, stay outside. That's a pretty deep room, and they're aggressive. Like they've done a really good job of getting better. I think Coach Monroe's done a great job coaching them. Got to keep getting better, but I like where we are there. And you mix that with the safeties and then the nickels, you start to look at there's more guys that are going to be playing in the secondary than we've had in the past.
BJ, a new era of college football with transfer portal, name, image, likeness, revenue sharing, looks like coming down the pike, expansion of the
salary cap.
Yeah, expansion of the Big Ten, expansion of the college football playoff. What do you think is what's the ceiling as you look at it for this program now in this new era? A lot of changes.
Dave, I love the question. I think it's a little bit. We're 10 days from game day. I think that's a little more for a few weeks ago and maybe the off season. But I do think the changes of college football are really healthy for where we're going. It's really positive for the student athlete. It's positive for the universities, as you can see financially. But when you start to look at what it's going to do for the change of college football, we don't necessarily know what that's going to look like. We're not there yet. Nobody's there yet. That's the future. I think with the new college football expansion, I think that makes people really excited, especially at the University of Minnesota. As I said at Big Ten Media Day, I think when you had 4 teams in the college football playoff, you could probably name 2 or 3 that were going to make it from the start of the season, then they were probably in there at the end. And maybe there was 1 or 2 that maybe some people had on the fringe, or maybe there was one shock. I think as you go through this, and if it's 12 teams, which it is in the college football playoff, that leaves the window open for a lot of teams to get in there from different conferences. And I think that's exciting for the fans. It's exciting for college football and the growth of our sport and the health of our sport as we keep moving forward. One thing I've always loved about college football is it constantly changes. There's one thing that changes is it always changes. And I think that's what makes it really exciting. Not just rules, but how it's all done. Not just like on the field, this year we're going to talk about, the drop tackle, and that's fine. Those are all good changes. But I'm talking about huge changes that change the dynamics of what college football look like in the future based on what was in the past. Words like scholarship, walk-on, whatever our definitions were prior to that, and our vision of that was, those are all changing of what that word actually means. It has a lot of different meanings now. Walk-on has a lot of different meanings now. 105 puts puts people on this parity, not equal playing field, because with NIL still being in play, but when you start talking salary cap and you start talking those types of things, it definitely creates a little bit, I think, more parity, where I think every fan base is going to sit there and go, okay, hey, listen, we got a great opportunity here. If we invest in X, Y, and Z, we have just as good a shot as a lot of other teams. So that's what's really exciting as we go forward. And I think I've said that publicly at Big Ten Media Day, that I think it's really healthy, especially for Minnesota, with the changes of college football.
When you went looking for a quarterback and you got Max, how involved did you think FCS level would be in that search?
I'm sorry, Randy, you mean
getting somebody from the FCS level? Was that something you were looking at all along? Or?
Yeah, no, it wasn't necessarily we needed somebody just from FCS. I mean, it wasn't FCS or bust. It was the best available player. And we needed somebody to come in here that understood the situation. There was pressure of the situation right from the start. We had to find the right fit for what we were looking for. And if you think back to it, Randy, we didn't bring in 4 quarterbacks with all this NIL money and stuff like that and say, okay, you guys all compete and let's go. We had to bring in somebody who was going to be able to lead the team the minute they got here, was going to be able to do okay without maybe without the most competition threatening them, was going to have to do okay with maybe not competition threatening them, knowing that they're the guy, to handle that responsibility in a very mature way and in a leadership way, and go out there and perform at the highest level. Because the option after that for us was, okay, a true freshman and bringing in another guy that we're going to develop. So when you're looking at it, you had to be right. So, every decision you make, you want to be right, and you're feeling you have to be right. But this one, we had to get right. And Max has just exceeded all of our expectations. He's got to go out there and prove it and play on game day and do what he does every single day. The only thing Max Brosmer has to do is be the best version of Max Brosmer every day. And that's what he's capable of doing, and that's what he'll do. And we have the utmost confidence in him. He's had a great 6 months. He's an amazing human being. And he's made this program better. He's made the people around him better. He's made our culture better. He's made University of Minnesota better. And I'm really proud of him for that. And it's going to be fun to be able to watch him here in 10 days.
How's Darius Taylor doing right now, and how do you feel about the running back depth?
Yeah, he's doing great. We brought in a ton of players for that reason in general. If anybody ever gets banged up, we got a few bumps and bruises, but I'm going to use the same line as we get in 10 days before game day. The injury report will come out, 2 hours before kickoff. But this is a very healthy football team. And I love how they've gone about their business throughout training camp. I thought we structured it to benefit them, which we always do, but you learn from your past to create your future on certain things. We listened to a lot of the science and data and applied our whole training camp schedule accordingly. But I really like the depth of the room, from the top with Darius all the way down. And we brought in a lot of guys for that position. a lot of guys who have played big-time college football. And then some other guys that have been young have really come on strong. So it's going to be fun to see how that all plays out and as you guys continue to compete within the season, but feel really good about where we're at 10 days out.
What do you think you know about North Carolina in 2024?
Yeah, I mean, we just started them yesterday with game planning and looking at them and starting to work with our coaching staff and dedicating a lot of hours towards that in between our players and training camp. First of all, I got a lot of respect for Mac Brown. A lot of you, I think it's well documented, the relationship him and I have, and he's always been really, really good to me. I mean, he's been a sneaky mentor because I get him at the most opportune times, and he's always been really, really good to me. They're really talented. I mean, they got 8 returning starters on defense, and they added a bunch of transfers that do start other places in the ACC or other places. They're deep. I think it's well documented. I think the AP All-American team came out, and one of their running backs, Hampton. I mean, he's really, really good. And we played against them last year. They've got a stable of running backs. They always do. They've got really good receivers. I think everybody's talking about, well, Drake May's not there, but they reloaded. They didn't rebuild. They reloaded with the guys that they have. Now, I know they're not naming a starter, and we expect to see 2 or 3 of them, and we'll prepare that way. But they all can run. They all can throw. They've all played college football at a high level. So, but they're talented. I mean, they're a North Carolina team, ACC team, and Mac Brown coach team. And
all right, excited to be here for game week. Excited to see the students start classes on campus. Before I get started, I want to wish all the local high schools all throughout the state good luck as they enter their seasons. We're obviously excited about the opportunity. We've worked very hard. Excited to play a home game. Excited to play UTEP. Coach Walden is a winner. I've known him since all the way back at East Texas Baptist. And he'll bring elite energy. He'll bring a dynamic offense and an aggressive defense. They've got excellent players. And so it's going to be quite a challenge. So we're excited about it, excited about our team, and look forward to seeing everyone there, starting with the legacy walk and all the way through the end of the game. We hope it's a great day because we've worked very hard to get to this day. So with that, I'll take your questions.
Is even?
I think we're going to play them all. Yeah, we're going to play them all. So, we kind of have different roles for all of them. And, Big Ten plays 4 weeks away. So I feel like I was hoping we'd be a little bit more dialed in on where they are. But I feel like they've all competed enough that we're going to give them all a chance and make some decisions probably 3 weeks down the line. Might illuminate itself obviously earlier, but they're all doing really good things. And so, that's the one position we're probably not quite, we're still quite unsettled on that in kicker.
Jaron Bonner, his rise is obviously notable. Just to get that number 1 spot a year ago, wasn't really in this position. What has he done to get to this spot where he's number 1 going into your opening?
I think anytime you have a guy that you can say is your starting slot receiver who was willing to be your starting fullback, there's something special about that type of guy, their brain. He was an excellent high school receiver, had an injury. As we tried to find roles for him because we like just the way he plays football, it started to emerge, and then just was unable to keep that 225, 228 weight. And so as he kept staying around like 218. We just said, hey, let's put him in the slot and see how physical he can be. Trying to win third down with big people like that, and he's just done excellent. So, we can be in 11 personnel and all of a sudden get under center and have him be the fullback still. There's lots of things you can do with a guy like Janirin, but at the end of the day, he's just a winner. He's tough, really tough. He's kind of emblematic of the type of guys I love to coach. And again, as we talk about positionless football, I think throughout the course of the year, you'll see him do a lot of things, the versatility that he brings.
How do you feel about that run game coming out of camp?
Well, I feel good about it, but, we're running against ourselves every day. So, after a while, you start to, you come out and you got the defense is yelling the play and the offense is, knowing what the defense is going to do. So it'll be really interesting to see when we face somebody else, obviously, handling different fronts. Now, Coach Clark's defense, is very similar to ours in that it's 3 down, 4 down, 3-3-5 hybrid. all the same things that they do is what we do. And so you have to be able to handle their pressure packages and the way that they attack you. They held opponents to right around 4 yards to carry last year. So, it'll be a challenge, but I feel good about where we are. I mean, I wouldn't put oars on the running backs if I didn't feel like we had guys who could make plays.
What are your expectations for Dylan, and how do you communicate that he doesn't have to do too much?
No, we're not thinking that way at all. No. I'd rather lose the first game than the last game. So we're not going to ease into it. We're going to play. We're going to play.
What does that look like? I mean, specifically strategy, but mindset-wise.
Yeah, Dylan's going to play. He's going to play the plays, right? When we call drop back, he's going to go back there, take his drop, go through his progression. Just how we want him to play when he's a junior. We're going to start day one that way. We're not easing into anything.
Is that because of like what Dylan has showed you? Would you do that with anybody?
It's a great question. So I don't mean to demean it, but just this is where I'm at right now. This is just where I'm at. I mean, I don't know if I'd be like this with anybody else. I don't know, but this is just where I'm at. This is how I feel. It's a good thing.
Bly Hill is on that depth chart. Is he available to play? Are you expecting to let him play in this opener?
Yeah, so Bly Hill came back from the knee and was doing really well, and then just, sometimes you come back from an injury and it leads to another injury. So he got some soreness in his hamstring, so he's available. But I don't know how much you'll have to see how this week goes. So that was kind of an unfortunate remnant of this past week, just some tightness in his hamstring. Nothing serious, but he's available, but I don't know how much he actually will play. So you're looking at Sierra Wright, you're looking at all those guys, Amari Sanders, Jeremiah Charles, Larry Tarver, all those guys will be ready to go.
Henry Butowski, he missed some time this camp. What's his status right now?
He's back in the mix. I think he'd be available, kind of like Bly, on an emergency basis. Probably trending more towards sometime next week being truly able to go play a full game.
Is there anybody else with the status like that?
I'm not very good at that. I don't mean that. I'm sorry. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else. Gunnar Gatula is injured right now. So Gunnar's got an ankle. Has an ankle. So he's trending towards being able to play. Brody Tagaloa's. So I'd say Gunnar probably next week. I'd say Brody Tagaloa hopefully 2 weeks from now. Is there anyone else that you guys have injury-wise?
I know it's been like 3 days, but an update on Tristan.
Yeah, Tristan's kicking. He's in the mix. So we'll make a decision probably Thursday or Friday of who's going to kick.
Malachi is good.
Yeah, Malachi's healthy. Yeah, Malachi's healthy. He's just he had a groin, so he's just a little bit further down on the depth chart right now.
You mentioned Baylor 2019 and how some of the things leading up to this season have reminded you, or you've chosen to do in a similar way that you handled with that team, like with the longer camp. And are there other similarities? And those 11-win team, I think are there other similarities?
I sure hope so.
Do you see some of those things, like just the maturation process of this team, their accountability, things like that you look for?
Yeah, the hard thing is that was year 3. And, the team in year 2 figured out how to win. They got to a bowl game, they won the bowl game. So, that's really, we haven't made that step. We haven't gotten to a bowl game and won a bowl game. So, year 3 for me, there were a lot, it's funny, there were a lot of people thought I was, there actually was they were reporting on the news that I was leaving, taking the Jets job. And I was like, I'm not leaving here. I knew we were going to be good. I knew, those guys were dialed in. So I think we have the same level from our older guys of accountability. It's just, learning how to win. I mean, it was a 53-yarder by a walk-on kicker to send the game into overtime against TCU. We had the ball 2nd and 19 with a minute left on our own 1-yard line, and Charlie Brewer took us 99 yards. We dropped the touchdown. So, we won 4 games in overtime or on the last possession. That's the secret sauce of where we have to get to with this team, right? But so that's why I'm not easing into it. I'm not going to just sit there and say, hey, Dylan, hand the ball off 42 times, don't throw it. Oh, hey, go win the game for us. I'd rather coach the mistakes now, and if there are mistakes, coach the mistakes, and then when the time comes,
As excited as everyone is to play, how good has this team been at trying to kind of stay in the moment, not get ahead of itself through fall camp to this point?
Yeah, they've been they have their own saying. That's not mine. They say one better, and I think they've done that. They try to get one better every day. I think Corey or someone did that, and they stick to it. Not everything's perfect, but again, like, there's just a core group of veteran guys that just kind of make the thing go. So, I think you're going to have everyone who starts on defense, but maybe one guy is a senior. Is that correct? Or could be a senior. Still some COVID years out there and some injuries, but pretty much everyone's a senior, right? So when everyone asked last year, why is the defense so much further ahead of the offense? Well, there's a lot of guys on defense that played a ton. Well, now what you're seeing on offense is you're starting to see the guys who've weathered the storm. They're getting a little bit older now, so hopefully, there's that mix. So I think they've done a good job.
How might the offense's growth open up Zat's play sheet a little bit after he was pretty limited last season?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, to me, offensive football is about getting the ball in the hands of guys who can make plays and letting them make plays. And really, I'll just go back to the running backs. It's really about when we block it for 4, we can't just get 4 anymore. Like we need 4 needs to become 12. Block it for 4 and it needs to go be 80, right? And so that's the step that we have to see. We have big receivers, so we're going to face a really aggressive defense. They'll play man on us, and so there's going to have to be a lot of big body catches. And instead of trying to scheme up the perfect play, like we're just going to call plays and let the fellas go in. And so when you have guys you believe in, you got to let them go in. And Zat's got it all at his fingertips. And the offense has worked really hard since the first week of June on these plays. Like, we're not going to go out there and reinvent the wheel. We're not tricking anybody. Like, we know what we're doing. We're going to go out there and do it and see what happens.
On Jamal Banks, has he just been everything you were hoping he would be as a leader and a person, given that he got a single-digit jersey and he's kind of one of the top receivers?
When he came in on his visit, both he, Miss Christie, his mother, a lot of times guys will sit there and they'll tell you their goals, and he was talking about nonprofit work and the things he wanted to do someday. And, I hear that a lot, right? And, he's one of the first guys I've ever seen, like, some guys do it, but to the level he's here to help affect other people. Like, there's not a day that I'm not blown away by his impact on other people. He just lives such a life of gratitude. And, he is an amazing, amazing person. And so I think he's had a really good effect, on those guys. And then his professionalism. Him and Nayor have brought a tremendous sense of professionalism to an already really good group. And so, it's going to be kind of funny out there. You're going to have Nayor, playing at his third school, 4th or 5th year senior in one play, and then you're going to have Ja'Cory playing his first college game, probably the next rep. So it's kind of a fun time to be at Nebraska with these guys. But Jamal really is. And what's great about Jamal's voting? The guys on defense voted for him. The O-line voted for him. He's respected by everybody.
Back to the nonprofit stuff that you talked about. What's an example of?
You probably should talk more to him. He led our team for us, though. In terms of what he's doing outside, but for us, he led our team in community service hours. He led our team in, we do our off-season points. He literally shattered what anyone else had ever done. I'm talking about at 3 schools. Just the amount of stuff that he did in the off-season, and he does, shattered anything anyone's ever done. And so, and he and Elliot Brown, and Elliot was right there with him. And so it's just, I just hadn't seen somebody do that, right? Normally you come in and you're like, I'm a 1-year guy, yeah, I'm a buy into the culture, but I want to put some good stuff on tape and get drafted. He came here to try to help change our culture and improve it, right? And because every year you change your culture, and every year you redo your culture and improve it. And Jamal was just the most amazing addition to that. And it's good when other transfer guys come in and maybe they're struggling with the things we ask of you, and they see him buying into it and having the success he's having and say, you know what, maybe I should try this. And so the impact of Jamal Banks will be here for a while.
In the 8 months you've kind of been able to be around Dylan, how have you seen him just navigate the attention and kind of the fishbowl that kind of comes with being him coming here?
Well, I think like anybody else, there's probably parts of it he likes, right? There's part, you like when kids have your jersey, and you like when people come up to you, and you like all that stuff. At the same time, I think he's done a good job so far of, always humbly working. To me, he texted me every night last week, may I please be late to curfew, and he'd send he's still in the building, right? And so I come in this morning to get my little old man workout in, and I go in, there's music in the cardio room. I'm like, who's in here? And he's in there riding the bike this morning at 6 a.m. So he understands that, you know, to get all that, you have to have work. And, you know, and I remind him, like, this position, when you're the quarterback at the University of Nebraska, you better be ready to ride the highs and lows. And your life better not be about what other people think about you. You know what I mean? It better not be that. And I think, you know, he and his family have instilled that in him. So, and he's a good teammate. You know, he does what he can with the fellows to help get them ready as well.
Well, it's always an exciting time of year, getting closer to kicking off Friday night, and I know our guys are excited about 7 o'clock, and there's been a lot of work put in, not just this last month. You look at the months ahead, all the way back to January. Really proud of these guys for the work they've put in. We got a few more days to take advantage of it. Just walked off the practice field today, but guys are looking forward to playing in front of a packed house, and the fans and the students welcoming them back to campus here started today. And so it's something that we've been working really hard and getting there. I was pleased with how kind of fall camp went. I thought there was some competition in it throughout. These guys have been working against each other, and now I know they're excited to get someone else on the other side of the line of scrimmage. That team that's coming in, Coach Herman, got a bunch of respect for him. He's done it at a high level, multiple places. He's in year 2 at Florida Atlantic. I know they'll bringing in a challenge for us that we're going to have to be ready for. Also proud of kind of the captains we announced the other day. Those 5 guys I think will represent us well. They've been a huge part of as we're trying to build this culture and doing it together. Those 5 guys that stood out with a vote that was from their teammates, and 5 guys that we're proud of with Mav, Tanner, Jordan, Aiden, and Nate. So with that, again, I want to echo, looking forward to Friday night. Obviously my first experience, but counting on a crowd and fans and students that can really help us throughout the game. With that, I'll take some questions.
Jonathan, I wanted to expound on that. This is your first experience here on a game week. Students came in late last week. You can feel the buzz. I saw you at the band thing the other day, and you said you watch them outside your window. What does the buzz feel like now that students are here? Can you feel it?
You definitely can feel it. Definitely a little bit more traffic. It's a little bit slower getting around. There's so many more cars, and it's fun. That's what college athletics, college football, but college life in general. When you get back to school and see some familiar faces, and just the energy on the sidewalks, people going to classes, the event with the band and their energy, and they have been working. I mean, early morning till late night outside my office, and counting on them to help us out in this game.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned going back as far as January. I'm just curious, with just a few days left until kickoff, is there still a sense of urgency to get some things done, or is it like, hey, we're at this point where we got to get ready to just play?
Oh, yeah, well, there's still, the hay's not in the barn. There's a sense of urgency. You think about games, first games, right, the mechanics, call it substitutions, communication. We got some new pieces this year in college football with the tablets and the communication through the helmet, and so we're just always looking at that. I do feel like our work has gotten us to a good point that, yes, we got to go out and play, and then we got to learn kind of where we're at. And this thing's not a game of perfect, but we want to be prepared and put them through as many situations that we think could arise on a Friday night.
You talk so much about your team. Obviously, that is your priority. But from a personal standpoint, how are you feeling finally getting to game 1? Just from when you were announced to getting your family acclimated, yourself acclimated, are you feeling more excited or nervous?
Yeah, I think definitely excited. I can have moments where my mind starts turning and you start, did we cover this? Are we ready for that on the football side? But again, you got to get to Friday night and let it rip. On the personal side, I feel like each month, the transition, we've gotten more and more comfortable. Again, I go back, I've been saying a lot, been feeling the welcoming with the kids in school, getting adjusted, making some friends, playing sports, the neighborhood we're in, all of that has been great.
Jonathan, you mentioned about the competition. How many spots do you feel right now solid with the 22 starters? And you'd mentioned previously about Montori. Are there any injuries that going in that might be an issue?
We do not have one that'll be issued season ending. We've got a few guys that, there's some bumps and bruises through the week. We're hopeful that we'll be pretty healthy come Friday. It's been competitive. We talk about 22 starters, which, we'll throw 22 guys out there. But I feel good that we're going to play multiple guys at some positions. Think about the defensive line. We're going to rotate through that. We've got guys that we feel 5-6 guys could rotate in the interior of the D-line. Linebackers, same way. Well, yeah, 2 guys will start that, but you'll see more than just 2 in playing in the game. Receiver-wise, we will play more than 2 or 3 guys. Even in the tight end spot, with Velling, Parachek coming along here. Mola's had a great camp. Mike, you're going to see multiple guys there. I mean, shoot, you might even see more than just 5 throughout the game at O-line of a spot or 2 with what that's competition's gone. So, yeah, we're getting close to feeling like, these are the 22 to start the game, but it might be the second series in the first quarter. You can see some other guys.
Jonathan, I was wondering, is there anything you're most curious to see how it plays out on Friday night, like the biggest uncertainty, whatever the case may be, and just going forward in live action?
Yeah, definitely, game, live action, the mechanics of that. Talk about the communication and the personnel. We need to settle in and be great on that. Curious to find out the response from this team. And I talk about, I think, being, it's 14-0. Whether you're up or down, kind of how we respond and do that. I want to be a team that finishes games and plays well in the end of the fourth quarter. And so this will be our first opportunity in live action to kind of see that.
Jonathan, obviously Tommy has a lot more experience than Aiden did last year, but would you ever consider putting him in for a designated series to see what he could do?
Currently, we haven't. We got a ton of confidence in Tommy, but we have not had that thought or conversation to have a set series for him. We do feel confident if he gets in this game, he can operate.
When it comes, this is going to be obviously Aiden Chow's first time ever starting at the college level, and he's mentioned that he's just excited for the learning process of this season. How, as a coach, how do you feel that he's ready for this moment? And how do you plan to just kind of manage his confidence, when he does face adversity inevitably at some point?
Yeah, we talk about it. I think he's definitely ready for this. He's a competitive player, and true competitors understand it's not going to go perfect every snap, and things are going to take place. There's going to be some really good plays too, but there's nothing like experience. And the guy's been out on the field playing big time football before, just hasn't been on the first snap, and so we'll be there for him to get him adjusted, and we're confident that in his preparation, in his instincts, and how competitive he is, that he'll give us a chance to score some points.
Coach, obviously with the 12-team playoff, that means more opportunity for the team. Teams can get in with 2, 3, maybe even 4 losses. I know it's only year one, but do you feel any more pressure to deliver in year one, considering there's so much more opportunity to compete for a national title?
I think it's a good thing that there's more opportunity for teams, 12 of them, to get in. I think there's always pressure in this job, this business. This is what big time college football is, and so you sign up for that, and you want to do that. You want to be playing in big games. You want to make it count when you're playing. And you want people to have passion behind their school, the university, and the product that's out there, and that's what I've signed up for. And this staff and this team, we're looking forward to that challenge.
You established your reputation in a different conference on a different end of the country. What kind of a challenge is this for you to put your footprints in the sand here in the Midwest and in the Big Ten? And will you be more nervous Friday night than you've been in a while?
When the game kicks off, I'm not thinking a lot about establishing this and that. I think it generally go through the seniors when we want to establish identity in all 3 phases. Think about that a lot, and we're going to recruit to that identity. Want to recruit heavily in this Midwest, and we've talked about it inside out. I think we've made some real gains on that, and we've got momentum. But it's a day-to-day constant process to do it. We want to establish again a team that's going to play really hard for 60 minutes, if not more, and compete snap in and snap out.
How about the nerve factor?
Again, I'm going to be excited about it. I got some confidence in, again, our preparation, these coaches and things. Those guys got to go out and make plays. I'm going to absorb it early pregame, and then definitely try to get locked in.
Coach, 3 of your 5 captains were transfers. Do you think that says even more about the faith that their teammates have in them?
I think it does. The impression those guys have made in a short period of time. And again, I just think we've got a lot of influence throughout, and you could almost cut this roster in half of first-year players here at Michigan State, and then the other guys that have been here a while. And there's respect on really both sides coming together. This camp has been huge, I think, for establishing that this is the ultimate team game. We've got to do it together. We're going to need all 11 on every snap, and not just those 3, all 5 captains really represent that.
Jonathan, when you look at FAU, what's something or a couple things on each side of the ball that stands out to you that they do really well? And I don't know if this is a separate point, but is game one of a new job sort of a unique game plan thing when you guys have been going against each other, and that's really your only barometer? You just don't know maybe like what will be good on a game day against a different opponent? Is that a different wrinkle for these?
It's a little bit new. And, similar to every season, right? You think something's going to be good, or we've had some success, but it's definitely new. The uniqueness of year one for us. Yeah, they're in their second year, and they've got some things established. They've got some returning players at the line of scrimmage. I think on both sides that are pretty good, but they've got a bunch of new players as well. Quarterback. We've got some tape at a previous university. That's a threat. He is athletic, competitive, he can make plays. So that's someone that's got our attention, the quarterback's ability. And then, you look at their front 7, they got some veteran group there with some guys that have played, and then you throw in some additions of transfers. So we've got an idea of what it kind of looks like, but you're never totally certain until Friday.
And again, when it's week 1, you haven't seen these teams, haven't seen FAU play just yet. How big of a challenge is it when you don't really have a whole lot of film to go off of this year?
Yeah, you don't try to chase ghosts because you don't have as much film as maybe you'd like. You got to be great in your foundation and knowing your rules, playing within the scheme and being able to adjust. Same thing, offense, defense, right? Defense, you don't know how they're going to line up. Offensively, you don't know how they're going to line up. I think about the communication again up front to get on the same page, trust your rules, and go out and play fast.
There's going to be a good amount of recruits in attendance at this game. What are you looking to showcase with this first event?
Well, obviously, a team that plays well together. On the recruiting side, whatever particular position we're talking about, putting those guys in the best positions possible. Trying to recruit a big-time fan base and student section and energy in the place, and something that would draw them to say, you know what, I want to be playing ball here.
Hey, Jonathan, I was wondering, was there any kind of different vibe at practice today? Just being that it's now game week, and what's the sense you get from the guys that were here last year and maybe the fan base as far as what they're looking for this season with all the build-up and coming off a couple of years they'd probably like to forget?
Yeah, I think just on the practice end, these guys know it's coming, and we recreated a little bit last week what a game week practice plan would be like, and so now we're doing it for the second time. The attention, the focus is there. We're repeating some calls because this plan has been kind of solidified for a while. I think the energy, the focus, and the excitement as we're getting so much closer, you could feel that at practice.
I'm wondering about the other side of you mentioned about the ghosts of not chasing without having to film. What are the benefits maybe for you and your staff and program to not have anything really on display here?
Yeah, I think that there's probably some benefit. Obviously, both our coordinators, O and D, have a background of what that thing looks like. But I think every year, I said it to the team this morning, I think good coaching staffs always are adjusting to the talent that's on their current roster. And so year in and year out, you do some self-scouting and adjust and throw in some new wrinkles, and we're counting on seeing that from them, and then obviously ourselves.
With the helmet communication on the defensive side of the ball as time goes on, is it going to be more of a position-based decision or a player-based decision?
Yeah, well, we try to do it in the inside of the defense, so inside linebacker, and then them be able to make calls for us, so that'll be position, and then one or two guys will be ready to have it. I think about the logistics, special teams wise, right? You got linebackers oftentimes play special teams, so you want to stay away from the two green dots on the field, but linebacker for us inside of the defense.
Coach, Friday, when it's late Friday night when we're
super excited to get into game week. We've this will be practice number 21 tonight under the lights. It'll be our last one under the lights before we play next Thursday, and just a lot of thought goes into that. Our first 7 practices were at night for a reason. 3 of our first 5 games are at night, so. A lot of different things that we did over the last 20 practices to get us ready for this game week. I told our guys we needed to have a great fall camp for 2 reasons. Obviously, the work is in front of us, but what people don't realize, and I shared this with them after they were done, so week one, we got in about 80 hours of film and practice and walkthrough and meeting times, 80 hours in the first week, 80 hours in the second week, and 80 hours in the third week, which is, for the non-math majors, 240 hours, right? And if you got a 12-game season that lies in front of us, obviously we'd love to play in the postseason, but you can only do 20 hours of work week with them during the college football once classes start, which obviously start on Monday. So that's 240 hours in the season. So it's kind of amazing. You get just as much work in 3 weeks of camp as you do during the course of the fall. So there was critical work that got done. Really excited about that. I'm excited about my staff, support staff, everything from the way our guys are equipped to the way that they're nutritionally taken care of, the way they're medically taken care of. Josh has afforded us the opportunities of that. The world that we're in right now with the ability for analysts and quality control coaches to be on the field with us, I think that has really improved the quality of practice and the look team and the way we can basically function. Also, a byproduct of that is, kids are just much more accessible to our coaches just because of pure numbers, right? They go by and see some of our assistant coaches, the GAs and quality control coaches. Those are having some meetings with our guys, right, that they can kind of have one-offs and better equipped to learn specifically, especially new guys. We have 45 guys that have never been through a fall game with us, right, have never been through a University of Illinois football game. The good news is we have a lot of guys in our building, guys like J.C. Davis, guys Melvin Priestley, Zachary Franklin, on the defensive side of the ball, Briggs, Terrence Brooks, guys that have played a lot of really good football at colleges other than here, but they've been in multi-game starts. So I think that part has been exciting to see their breath, right? Also here at the end, I've opened it up for some of our guys to stand up and talk in front of the team and to hear the character, the demeanor, the personalities that we have in that room, the journeys they've had is really cool. So to jump into Eastern Illinois, have great respect for Chris, and I know Barry shared his story when this came up, that they were going to be on our schedule. Barry expressed to me, and then the history they've shared. So a lot of respect for what he's done. First year, obviously, was some bumps in the road, and then last year to be an 8-3 team that, in realistic, I don't know, never been in FCS, but should have been a playoff team, very, very capable offense, defense, special teams. They have multiple players back. Their whole roster is, when you look at their 2 deep or projected 2 deep on offense, defense, and even in the kicking game, it's all juniors and seniors, guys that have been junior and seniors in their program, but also guys that have transferred in. So a tall task for us to have, but excited to get out here in Memorial Stadium and be a part of it. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Coach, you mentioned FCS to your guys. Do they talk about that at all or not?
We do, just because of this would be their on their schedule, the marquee game of the year, right? I think you're always going to get a opponent's best every week. I think it just go, but I think especially for them, Eastern Illinois, a lot of kids on their roster from Illinois. They have a kid on their roster that his dad and I were friends since high school, right? So there's like a lot of these stories. There'll be guys on this team that have people they played with in high school. I think that proximity is good, but we kind of always say respect all, fear none, right? And the message from me as a head coach is the same as we're playing Eastern Illinois, and it will be the same against Kansas, right? You got to learn to play your opponent, but who is your opponent, right? So we're going to look specifically at, we're playing Eastern Illinois, we're against Eastern Illinois' offense, but who is the right guard, who is the left guard? That doesn't change really matter, independent of who we play.
Any update on?
What's that?
Where are you guys at from an injury standpoint?
Injury standpoint, as of right now, James Cruz got cleared 2 days ago, so I think he was ready to burn his green jersey. To have 2 Cruz brothers limited in practice is not healthy for anybody. But both James and Josh are back cleared, 100% go. Josh had limited practice last week, but he's full go for this afternoon or this evening's practice. I know he's excited about that. On the offensive line, everybody's back. On the wide receiver, there isn't any issues. Nobody will be limited from contact or from the scrimmage participation. Really, the only guys projected to be out that would have played in the game, right, would be the 2 guys with ACLs, Cole Rusk and Mason Moraga. But other than that, we're 100%.
Bret, you get 3 or 4 weeks with these guys. It's kind of an open-ended question you can take anywhere. But what did you learn about your team that you didn't know about them before training?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think in camp you learn a lot, right? And first off, voices, right? When I'm out at practice, I usually script on my sheet where I want to go for practice, and a lot of that is, obviously I want to watch things, but a lot of times I want to hear things, right? So I think that's a very important point. I think a head coach, you probably recognize it more than others, but if a team that talks well and communicates before the snap and after the snap usually plays very well. So that's communication on the field. But then, we've had all 6 captains got up and addressed the team in an informal team environment. They stand up in front, gave them the podium just like this, and Josh Curt started off with a message that is Josh Curt's, right? And for them to hear that in the epitome of what that is, he was followed after that by Miles Scott, who, for those in the room didn't know his story, he talked about coming in as a walk-on, playing on offense, transitioning to defense, in the story that told, right? And then I transitioned over, and Pat Bryant talked, and he talked about coming in, and we had actually signed him without me being the head coach, right? And he told that journey of earning the coach's respect in that first year into where he is today, and it just keeps going on and on. And then the last guy to talk last night was Josh Geske. I had 2 or 3 guys that had wanted to talk, but after he got done talking, the place stood up and went crazy. So I just said, hey, we're going to walk out on this one. It's a walk-off home run. So, I think the voices that we have now in the locker room, our kids made reference to things that as coaches we've said, but also as players to hear. For instance, T-Raw, when he spoke, he talked about a conversation that day he had with Luke Altmaier. I think anytime your starting nose is talking to your starting quarterback, I think that's a really big deal, right? So if you want me to say it, I just said it. He's our starting quarterback. I know some of you guys need that formality. But I think that's a really, really big part. And I think, after all these years as a head coach, I think that's something that really jumps out is how does this team talk?
Coach, are there going to be some key indicators coming out of this game that are going to give you an idea of what kind of team you have, what some strengths and weaknesses and that kind of stuff?
Well, I think anytime your game plan matches results, that's a good thing, right? So we won't know that till after we're done, right? I think going into this game, to have as many guys as we have, as I mentioned earlier, that have played some good football for us, but key positions that we got new faces is going to be critical, how they play and how they fit into our scheme. I think of positions of kids that touch the ball. So obviously, all 3 running backs have played, but actually I should say 5. Jordan Anderson, who's had as good a camp as anybody. He's a guy that I'm excited. He's never touched the ball in a live situation. Khalil Valentine, Tanner Arkin and Henry Boyer, both those guys I think factor into us. And then we have a young man, Carson Goda, who has been very impressive in fall camp. At wide receiver, obviously we lost 2 players that touch the ball a lot in Isaiah and Casey, but Pat Bryant, Zakari, Malik Elsie has had an incredible camp. Kapka Jones, there's probably 6 to 7 wide receivers that, haven't been involved in a heavy game plan to see kind of how they function. And defensively, to see the new faces up front, I think, and then, kind of sprinkle in these other guys, to see how they play is going to be a key part.
What kind of growth have you seen from Luke this offseason?
Luke Altmaier?
Yep.
Well, first from the offseason, we encouraged, empowered, and tried to create as much as we could for our quarterbacks in general to talk. I think not just Luke, but Donovan, Kirkland Michow, Trey Petty was in January. So I think that position overall in general has grown in that regard. And then Luke is very talented. I always say this, right? He kind of looks like a guy that's in a pickup game down at the rec league, right? But he can really, really athletically do some things with his feet that are pretty impressive. I think his arm strength is better than it's ever been. His overall strength, his presence, his awareness. I think in year 2 with Barry, he just has a better understanding of our offense, and vice versa. I think Barry probably understands him better. So that happens, and just to be completely honest, the people around him, I think, are much more comfortable to see our kids react to his speech or his talk. To see them react to him during the course of a game, I think is pretty impressive.
Who or what in your career influenced you the most about paying such minute detail to situational football and in-game kind of situations when it comes to a practice?
I've been very blessed, right? So my head coaching resume as an assistant under was first Hayden Fry to Bill Snyder. I'm sorry, Hayden Fry to Kirk Ferentz to Bill Snyder to Barry Alvarez to Bill Belichick, right? And those guys are all coaching, and I'd say I take a little bit of that from everything. Coach Fry was more of that's where I learned how to do player talks. That's why every time I go out on the field when a player's injured, because of Coach Fry, he did it. Kirk was probably a guy that really, taught me the stuff that we kind of, I would say, endlessly go over, situational football, but because of his NFL background. And then I think it really came to life for me when I went to work with Bill. because Kirk had been under Bill, right? That's how we actually crossed paths and met. So I think the combo platter of those two guys were a huge influence in that regards. But Bill Snyder was, for anybody that's ever been around or seen him, like his attention to detail, his theory was to leave no stone unturned and then go back and turn it over again, right? Like we would do 4 scouting reports on our first opponent. We'd do one in the winter, one in the spring, one in the summer, and one in the fall, right? And that's just kind of an unwavering process he taught me, and it's been very, very heavy spent since then.
Guys, here we are, game week. How can, I guess this is supposed to be a game press conference, so I'll give a few opening comments. The guys worked really hard in camp. We transitioned to game preparation last week, and we're kind of repeating that this week. And so today is a Wednesday, actually, of game prep. So now we're coming on the back half of the week, and it's been hot. So it's been a challenge. These last 2 practices have been hard for the guys. We're a little beat up. You know, I told you I'm not going to get into all the specifics, but you'll see some young faces out there that you haven't seen play before. And, you know, obviously Mose is a season-ending injury. Right now there's no other season-ending injuries, but there's some that are single or multiple game injuries. So we're just going to have to work our way through it.
Like you've been around a lot of these. You've been around a lot of these season openers at this point. I'm just curious, do some season openers feel different than others, and is this one of them for you?
Not really for me. You know, like we haven't played the game yet as this team, the 24 team. So I only know one way, and that's full speed. You know, run scared, as my mentor taught. You run scared, you get ready to go. Not scared of your opponent, not scared of the situation. Just check under every rock. Make sure you've gone through everything over and over again. Situations that, you know, you haven't played a game in a long time. So just make sure you keep doing it over and over again so the guys are ready and comfortable. There's an old saying, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training. And we got to make sure that we're trained in everything we're doing, and then we're ready to play. Whoever's healthy, we got to go out and play.
Greg, Curt previously talked about year 1 and year 2 making a step up at his previous stops. Have you seen enough where you're confident that that trend could continue with the offense this season under his direction?
Yeah, I'm hopeful. Yeah, I think we're more cohesive. We understand it better. But again, you got to go do it, right? I mean, practice is everything to us. We believe that. But then you have those 12 games that you got to go do it. Otherwise, you know, it's just a thought. So now they're coming, right? We've been preparing long enough, you know, since January. Preparing for this, so looking forward to getting out and playing a game.
What does Ethan have to do in your mind for you to think his debut was a success?
Just do his job. Yep. No different than any other position, although it's much different because he touches the ball every play. But within his realm of the big job he has to just, you know, we say chop your job. He's got to chop his job 1 play at a time. Doesn't need to do anything special, just needs to do what he's coached to do or trained to do.
The last couple of years for Sam Braun, obviously a little choppy because of the injuries. I guess, what are your expectations for him this year?
Well, Sam, I think, is in a good place. He did get bumped earlier in camp, so he missed some time. So he's not all the way back by any means. But my expectation is he's really looked good both before he was bumped and then since he's been back. Yeah, so we have some depth in the running back room, and we need to make sure we utilize that.
What are you expecting to see from Howard on Thursday?
They're a really well-coached team. I know their coach well. Go back a long time. He was at South Florida. I coached his little brother at University of Miami. I guess it's his little brother, little or older. I don't know what it is, but I coached one of his family members at Miami, and I followed his career. He was at South Florida for all our great games over the years, and then he was at Miami and then at Tennessee. So he's coached, and a lot of his coaches on his staff, you know, I know them. They're experienced coaches, so it's a very well-coached team. They really challenge you schematically, and they have some really good players. You know, they have some guys on the Senior Bowl watch list. Their safety number 0 is, you know, I think he'd play anywhere. Really, really fine player. You know, both their running backs are really good players, 2 and 5. One of them I know his dad, Edgerrin James from Miami. So, you know, look, this is it's going to be a challenge. We got to get our guys ready to go. We're a little bit shorthanded. That's a fact. And we got to figure out a way to go score one more.
7-6 last year, bowl victory. You said after that, you guys
reached a significant mile marker, and you use that the Parkway Turnpike reference. This year, what's the next step for this program? And if you want to use your mile marker again, what would that be?
Yeah, it's so hard to say, right? Like you'd like to say, well, it was 7-6, so let's make it 9-4, whatever. Everybody likes to do that. You never know what's going to unfold. I mean, it's just that's the way it is. I didn't expect not to have Mo Touré. Well, you wake up one morning and you don't have Mo Touré anymore. So I don't ever get into that game. That's fun for media and fans, and I understand why you do it. What else are you going to do all week while you're waiting? Well, I got a job to do all week that pertains to that score, that win that you're talking about. So I don't really get caught up in that. I get caught up in the process. I try to get our team to get caught up in the process. Certainly with people talking about it, I need to sometimes bring our guys, hey guys, listen now, the only thing that matters is right here and now, right? And we believe practice is everything. I mean, it's just something that's been as long as we've been together. Practice is everything, and you win the game on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, and then you go out and claim it on Saturday. So that's what we're in the midst of right now. And it's been a tough week, but we're not. We have some injuries. The easy thing to do is, we better lighten up on them. We can't do that. This is a long season, and we're preparing this team for the opening game, but we're also preparing the team all during training camp for the season.
Real quick, just on special teams specific, go big picture, small picture.
Right.
Return game last year. What was your impression of the return game, and what's your plan this season?
Our return game, very selective. Yeah, very, very selective. We return kicks when we think it benefits us. So we had the #1 kickoff return team in America last year, and we returned 5 total kicks. So what does that tell you about stats? They can be very misleading, right? We're gonna do a very good job, in my opinion, of managing risk, managing opportunity. That's the business we're in the kicking game. But where there's an opportunity, we really try to take advantage of it, and where there's risk, we try to kind of lay low. And that's always been our philosophy, but probably more so now than ever. But I don't know, maybe I don't know why.
To follow up to Pat's question, do you understand though why there's so much optimism around this team from the outside?
I do. I mean, we made progress. We have experienced players. But then I also know what happened, right? One of the best players, not one of them, maybe the best player on our team, we lost for the season. You wake up one morning and he's not able to play anymore. So I understand how fragile it is. And if I or anybody in this organization starts to think the way that you guys are talking, it's been said many times. It's like poison. If it sits on the table, it doesn't do anything to anybody. The minute you put it in and drink it, now it's a big problem you got. And we have to stay focused on the job at hand. There's pieces are always changing. The narrative's always changing. You always have to be ready to pivot. And that's a big job. Just getting a team ready mentally, physically, and emotionally to go play is a big job every week. So you can't, at least I don't have the capacity to do more than that. Maybe some guys do.
Greg, when you mentioned Mo's injury for the first time, you mentioned Abram Wright as well. What kind of role do you expect him to play this year?
Well, Abe, you saw him kind of come onto the scene a little last year, right, on teams and also on third down. Abe has had a good camp. Abe is a very able linebacker now, no pun intended. But he's seeing it better. He's really athletic, can run, he'll hit. He'll do all those things. So I think he's got a bright future. We're going to keep shoving him out there in different roles. And I think, with Choppa or DJ and Moses Walker, I think those guys are feeling it. And we'll see what we do with Tyreem. That'll be kind of a late decision. And we'll make a decision here and haven't made it yet.
We'll go to Dom, Brian, Krista.
A little more broadly on the linebacker room, how have they responded in the last week or two since Mo's injury?
Well, I think it's bigger than the linebacker room. I think it's the team. You not only lose a really fine player, you lose kind of I don't know what the word is, the alpha on the team. That's what Mo is and Mo was. So now, is there one guy who steps up and fills that? No, it'll be a combination of guys, right? And that's when I was talking with Steve, and that's why when things change, it takes so much to get it all patched up again, right? And to get it, because you still got to, no one wants to hear that you lost this guy, you lost that. That's nobody's problem but ours. You got to figure out you're a problem solver, and you got to figure out how you're going to fix that up so you can go out and win football games. And that takes an incredible amount of time and effort. And Mo was a lot of things to this team, including being a really fine linebacker.
All right. Well, it's game week. Finally here. So a lot of work to be done, obviously, before we kick off. Got to have a great week of preparation, starting with today, to put ourselves in the best position, to be successful, to play our best. FIU, Coach McIntyre does a great job, has throughout his entire career. Extremely dangerous quarterback, dual threat kind of guy that throws the ball well, extends plays, can run, and we'll have to do a great job on him. They've got a deep stable of receivers, returning 2 or 3 receivers and adding more guys from the transfer portal. Impressed with the running backs. The guys all returned that they played last season. Experienced in the secondary at safety and corner. A leading tackler returns at linebacker. Specialists are good. Kicker, long snapper, punter, return people. So, it'll be a challenge. And we'll have to play well. And, I want to see us play fast and physical and cut out some of the mistakes we made in the first 2 scrimmages, penalties, misassignments, things of that nature, but also play smart, disciplined, and poised. So there's a fine line there. But we do want to attack, be that kind of team, and we'll have to play well.
At JMU, any of the ones you guys had there, and how has he kind of developed as a leader? Tyson Lawton was telling us he kind of brought the group together after the first scrimmage and really kind of lit a fire under them. What have you seen from him in the locker room, kind of getting the guys together?
Yeah, he probably reminds me of Cole Johnson, who we had for 2 seasons. His last year with us, he had a tremendous year at about 41 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions, threw for over 4,000 yards. They're both more pocket guys, but still can gain positive yards with their legs. Really smart, heady. He's played a lot of football, respected by his teammates. He's not a real rah-rah guy on the field, which is fine. You lead kind of by example and how you do on the field, but he's got the respect of all his teammates.
Curt, I guess just your philosophy as much as anything else on how you handle freshmen that you might want to see get some snaps, where you maybe set the bar for guys that you don't worry about the red shirt, where you maybe set the bar for guys where you think, let's give him a couple games and kind of see where he gets to, just how you kind of handle basically the question of whether a guy's going to red shirt, whether he's going to play and retain it, or whether you just sort of throw it off.
Well, the best guys played, really. And we're a veteran team, even though we got a lot of new guys. We got a lot of seniors on this football team. So I wouldn't anticipate seeing many freshmen out there. That doesn't mean you might not see 1 or 2, but it's all based on who can help us be successful, who's ready to play winning football. So, and things change every week. So right now, going into the first game, I don't see many freshmen have a very significant role in this game.
Hey, Coach. Obviously, after Nick Kidwell went down, you guys have had a competition there at O-line, not just because of him, but overall, just kind of with, not naming names, but just where are you guys at with that competition? How do you feel about the 5 guys right now that look like they may be the starters?
I feel good. And like I said previous, right now you're looking at Drew Evans, Bray Lynch, and Tyler Stevens. 3 guys for 2 spots, and they all can snap also. So, we'll see who we chart out there for the first series.
Curt, you mentioned FIU's quarterback Keon Jenkins. What do you feel like? What do you feel like is the biggest thing that causes trouble, and what is the biggest thing that you can cause trouble for him on Saturday?
Yeah. Well, he's an extremely capable passer, but when he gets out of the pocket, he does a really nice job of extending plays. And even though he's a really good athlete that can tuck it and run and gain a lot of yards, he's going to look to throw first and does a nice job of finding people when he extends plays. And, we got to win up front. Our defensive line and we got to put pressure on him and keep him in the pocket, and not give him much time to throw. We got to get to him, and we need a game from our D line.
Yeah, Curt, how with this first game of the season, how much do you kind of see this as an opportunity to set the tone for what this era of Indiana football will look like?
I don't look at it that way. This is the opponent. I'm spending every second of my day with a sense of urgency, trying to help put us in the best position to be as good as we can be. And that's how we look at things as coaches, I think, across the country.
Coach, we know that you're a process-oriented guy. I'm curious what the process looks like now that it's a game week. You're away from fall camp. How do the meetings go? When does preparation start for next week's opponent? All things like that.
Yeah, well, all eyes are on this opponent and today. And, typical in season, I was up at 4 a.m. and in the office before 5. And, we'll have a light practice tonight. And then tomorrow is first and second down and punt return, and then Wednesday's third down, and Thursday's red area and goal line, 2 minute, and the mornings and afternoons are spent preparing for those situations, and we put it all together.
Hey, Coach. Yeah, Omar Cooper been mentioned as a potential breakout guy, to use the generic phrase. Those of us saw him a lot in high school, saw the potential that was there. What are things he needs to do this season to go from potential to make a few plays here and there to be maybe the breakout guy who really can be consistently an impact guy for you guys?
I think he just has to take what he's done on the practice field and take it onto the game field, which I'm confident he will and can.
Yeah, I want to say I think we had Shanahan in here a few weeks ago. We had Walker, we had Lawton, who each mentioned this winning mindset that you have. What kind of shaped, your specific mindset? And, again, for a team that's won, I want to say 9 games the last 3 years, how have you maybe approached trying to, add that here in the culture here?
Well, I think that's well documented at this point, but, we came in and changed the roster, and then you got to change the way people think, the mindset, the culture, the identity of your football team. And I think we've made progress, but you really can't measure it till you play. And then every week, chapter 1 of a 13-page book. So I'm excited to see us play. We do have a lot of work to do before we kick it off. And I'm confident in this team.
You guys have a few cornerbacks down. Do you feel like you have a good grasp of the kind of rotation going into the season opener?
We really don't have a few down. We had one miss some practice time in fall camp, and he's mending very quickly. So we anticipate being close to full strength.
You've been a part of multiple rebuilds and reboots. Going into this week, I know you'll know a lot more after you play, but how do you feel about your offense now as comparative to other places where you've gone into that first game?
I feel good about our offense. We have a lot of veteran players. We have a veteran quarterback. And I think we have a chance to be good offense and defense and special teams. And, but as a coach, you've always got concerns too. I've never had a team I didn't have concerns about something. But my focus right now is on preparing these guys and help them be as successful as possible Saturday. And, I feel good about the pieces we have in place.
We've talked before about how small the margin of error is once the season starts. What aspects through fall camp have you seen lessen that margin, and in what parts do you think this week really need some work?
Well, I think we were more consistent in practice as camp went on. We weren't an up and down team. We still have to more consistently get everybody doing what they're supposed to do, assignment-wise, technique-wise. But part of that is the challenge of camp too, because you install everything. So the plate is very heavy. Now, you get into the first game, and that plate will lighten up a little bit. And you want to free them up from thinking too much so they can play fast and let their ability take over.
Yeah, Coach, kind of tell us how this year is different from last year, maybe how you've grown as a coach, and also how the team's different from last year this time.
Yeah, I think, it's entirely different. One, we've got a new locker room. Even the guys that have been here that are returning, they're older, they're more mature, their bodies are different. Their understanding of what we're doing from a program picture and a schematic picture is higher. As a staff, we've grown. It's no secret. Like last year that was my first rodeo. You know what I mean? So you find ways to improve the program. You take the things that worked and enhance them, and the things that you need to get stronger in, you dive into them and embrace that feeling of being uncomfortable. And I think for me personally, just understanding how best to use my time in order to help the program from a football standpoint. I think a year ago there was a lot of things that we were tweaking and changing. Just on the stuff on the periphery, the ins and outs of the program that had nothing to do with the playing field. And so now that everybody's been here for a year, they understand how we want to operate. There's no need to micromanage, and now you can dive into football a little more. And I just think we're in a much better place. I look back to this time a year ago, knowing what I know now, and seeing what we're seeing in front of us now, and it's like, yeah, it's not close.
Right, Corey Corey Stewart listed as a starter at left tackle. There's some other guys who you had said before weren't going to be able to play, and they're not listed here. So I'm just clarifying: does that mean he's definitely able to play on Saturday?
No, I would say he's questionable right now. Okay. We'll see how kind of this week goes. Not out of the question, but still a possibility.
Did you get to the end of camp with an idea of who you think your 5 best offensive linemen are, or is that still a very fluid situation just because Corey hasn't been able to practice?
Corey is in the top 5. Like there was no question about that. And then past that, there are a few guys that missed a little bit of time in camp that we still want to see a little more from. Obviously the guys that have been there, we know what we're getting from that standpoint, and we're happy with the depth that we've created at that position.
Where does FCS opponents fit into your scheduling philosophy going forward as a head coach?
You play 9 conference games, and so if you could have 3 of them, that would be great. No, but I think it's a good opportunity for the FCS opponents to play in a Power 4, Big Ten type atmosphere and against those type of opponents. I know as a coach, like you like to go up against the best of the best and kind of see where you stack. And for us, like it's a good chance to really dive into the process and fully respect the preparation and your opponent, and and go compete and get somebody's best shot. You know what I mean? And so I think anytime you can do that, especially early in the year, is good for both programs.
You talked about your preparation and how you're doing things differently this year, but as a whole, a lot of these guys have been through this with you now. A lot of them haven't. How's the team kind of come together as a whole and realize, it's real now, we're rolling out the ball and they're keeping score?
Yeah. I would say that this is probably the closest team I've been around, and that's not only as a head coach but as a assistant as well. I think we did a lot of things in the winter, in the spring, in the summer to provide opportunities for organic relationships to form. I think the guys have done a really good job of reaching out to guys in the locker room that they wouldn't normally hang out with just to get to know each other. I think that showed up in the way we practice. There wasn't a whole lot of lot of fights out there. There was guys that were competing at a high level, but also taking care of each other. You know, we, like I said, we did a lot of things where you had an opportunity to be vulnerable and talk about things that weren't football related. To get to dive deeper into the individual, and you know, everybody's going through different things and different walks of life, and everybody's got their own problems, and so you kind of get to know why people act the way they do, and you know, why guys might communicate a certain way. And I think anytime you have that background and that understanding, just allows for more efficient communication.
You said, or Coach Petrilli said, or probably both, you want the best guys with the ball returning kicks. And I look down, obviously you got running backs, but Elijah Jackson, somebody you have on the kick return, listed as the number 1. What do you like about him when the ball's in his hands?
I mean, he's really, really fast. You know, he's a track guy in high school, and that definitely translates to the gridiron. You know, he's put on a lot of muscular weight since last year, and so... And he's he's shorter in stature, so it's hard to see him once he gets behind some blockers, and when he gets in the open field, it's pretty electric.
Can you expound a little bit on some of those team building things you did for a lot of teams? That's like bowling and stuff in the summer. Did you go deeper than that?
Yeah, we did. We went a lot deeper than that. You know, I think one of the first things we did, you know, we created teams of 6, 7, 8 guys, and we're strategic about who were on those teams. You know, it was a guy returning, a guy, that was incoming in January, different position groups, different backgrounds, and we took them to escape rooms in town. And so that kind of forced people to communicate with each other, and, got to see who was able to get out of there the fastest. And so, you got to see leadership, you got to see problem solving, and you got to, just see them interact. And I thought that was a cool experience. We brought them back to the indoor one night and again, broke them up into different teams strategically. Had a dodgeball tournament. And so now got to see guys like compete. That was the most competitive dodgeball I've ever seen. But got to see guys compete and have fun. Again, nothing to do with football. We rented out the tap for one of the playoff games and made guys sit with people they didn't know. So you got to, again, just break bread, have fellowship, watch some ball, kind of an icebreaker there. And then in fall camp, we had 45 minutes at the end of every day before our final walkthrough, before they, headed home to get some rest. We had breakout sessions where, again, it's, 4 or 5 guys per group, with a coach as a moderator, and again, every day it was you had a different team, you never with the same guy twice, and just ask them life questions. We had first off was who are you, where are you from, what was your family dynamic growing up, and then I would present a question or two for the group to ask, just to generate some thought and dialogue, and I felt like that really helped us get to know each other and find out, what people's motivations are, and, what people are afraid of, and what people are hopeful for. And so I thought, that was a great way to get to know each other and develop some real chemistry.
Just sort of in the big picture, what you're trying to do here at Purdue, how do you define success this year? Do you put a win total on it? Do you just
I think
base it on the underlying trends, the interest in the program, whatever it might be?
I think I would be better suited to answer that question at the end of the season. Right now, the success for us is scoring more points than Indiana State on Saturday. So, yeah, that's my answer to that question.
Did you have any mentors that you leaned on in the offseason and kind of learned from?
There's a bunch of guys that I've worked with that I talk to frequently. I would say my biggest mentor is my dad, and that's probably who I talk to the most. He has a pretty level head and kind of sees things for what they are, face value, and is not afraid to shoot me straight. So I do a lot of leaning on him.
And then just how complex are you looking to get for Saturday? Are you guys going to kind of hold back some things, or are you trying to dive into it?
I would just dive into it. You know, I've been a part of programs where, you know, you try to not to show things. Ultimately, you're trying to win a ball game, and you know we all know how difficult it is to win. And also, I think, you know, the more you show, especially early in the season, the more your opponent has to work on. And so, you know, we'll show what we need to show and try to be strategic in that aspect.
More questions for Coach? All right.
Yeah, we're excited. It's officially game week. This team has had a great camp. You know, entered into camp with 111 young men on our roster. Have been really, really pleased with the development and growth that we've seen out of all 111. There's areas of experience on this team, areas where experience may be lacking a little bit, areas of great depth, areas where we needed to develop depth. But really excited about where this group is as of today. Fun to shift our focus to Miami of Ohio this week. Great opponent, returning MAC champions, very well coached. Coach Martin does an exceptional job. I think this group fully understands the quality opponent that we have coming in here, and you know, we're able to kick things off today with a great Monday practice. Little different, you know, routine for us this week. You know, with it being week one, really loaded things up on the front end, and you know, we'll scale back as the week goes. But it's off to a good start, and we're excited about the opportunity on Saturday.
Hey, Coach, do you have any updates just on how future status is heading into the start of the season?
Yeah, nothing specific, but you know, feel like we're in a good spot overall. You know, some of the guys that we're dealing with some of your typical nagging bumps and bruises throughout fall camp. It was good to see. You know, gave our guys you know, yesterday off, and you know, feel like we're as close to full strength right now as we can be.
David, are you going to name a starting quarterback, and is there any information on that position that you can share?
Yeah, you know, Mike Wright and Jack Lausch entered into fall camp, you know, competing for that role. Been really impressed with the development of that room over the course of camp. You know, between Jack and Mike, Ryan Helinski has shown some really good things. Awfully excited about Ryan Bowe, first year in our program from Batavia. But in terms of publicly, there probably won't be anything out there until game day. Who our starting quarterback will be.
So when they run out on the field?
Pretty much.
Coach, with Bryce Gallagher graduating last year, it seems like you've got a lot of competition in that linebacker room. Tell us a little bit about the depth. It's very obvious out there.
Yeah, no. Xander Mueller, so excited about, you know, everything he's shown in the last 20 months that I've been here, but he just continues to improve. You know, he'll still be at that will linebacker position for us, which is such a critical position within our defense. And then, you know, Mac Uline and Braden Bruss have really done some exceptional things at the Mike position. You know, Mac does such a great job of commanding the defense, continues to improve, and Bruss is a young player that's still learning. To see his growth and maturation through spring and into fall camp, you know, we're very confident that you're going to see both those guys playing a lot of football for us. Excited about, you know, the development of Kenny Soares and you know, his ability not only at the Sam linebacker position, but also utilized as a pass rusher in some third down packages. Jason Reynolds continues to improve. The addition of Nigel Glover back to our roster has been a great addition. You know, Tim McGarlow does a great job with that room, but definitely excited about the depth and experience that exists within that room. Grayson Metz coming back, has played a lot of football for the Cats. Would definitely say that's one of the strengths of our entire football team right now.
Coach, talk about the team's health. Cornerback Corey Dye posted what looked like a broken bone to his Instagram. Is there any timetable or will he be able to come back this season? And if not, who's looking for his replacement?
Yeah, we're unsure on the timeline for Ori. Won't get into any specifics, but what I will say about Ori is, you that young man's growth over the course of the last year has been so exciting. Very confident with the way that Ori just approaches everything in his day-to-day. That he'll be back on an expedited timeline, and from what we're hearing, it sounds like that's a positive timeline. So hurting for Ori, but also very excited that he'll be back in a timely manner. Unsure what that exactly looks like at this point. In terms of the cornerback room, Theron Johnson as a returning starter, Evan Smith, my gosh, has had an outstanding fall camp. Josh Fussell, entering in only his second year, played a few special teams reps for us last year, but redshirted. Those two really excited about where their play is at. Cole Shivers continues to improve. So similar to last year, I think you'll see some rotation at that position. But Theron really leading that room with his experience. And again, Josh Fussell and Evan Smith really excited about where their game's at right now.
David, as you close fall camp and kind of go to week 1, what position is, if there is one that's kind of stood out from the beginning to now that is kind of tried, maybe developed a little bit better, or just
Yeah, I think you're asking for one position. There's a lot that stand out. I would say overall, collectively, what we've seen with the O-line from spring to now is really, really exciting. You're starting to see that group gel. There's going to be required development for every position, but specifically that O-line, even as we get into the first half of the season, to continue to find that continuity and consistency. But really excited about where that group is at. And, everyone that talks about the wide receiver position wants to talk about, Bryce Kurtz and A.J. Henning, as they should. But really excited about the way that room, Coach Binns, has gotten that group to a point where we feel really, really good about multiple guys in that room. C.J. Johnson, Ricky Amaraze, Frank Covey, just to name a few that have really stepped up their game here the last couple months.
David, even though you don't want to announce anything until Saturday, do you at least have clarity right now at this point on who you're going with? And is the fact that both Mike and Jack have dual threat talents imperative for this offense too?
I think that is something that Zach Lujan, I've watched him from afar for a long time. One thing I think Zach does a really good job of is tailoring the offense and the plays that are being run to the strengths of his personnel. And Mike and Jack certainly have very similar skill sets in that regard. The ability to extend plays, be a threat when scrambling, pick up first downs, keep the chains moving, can certainly be utilized in quarterback run game. Within these walls and in this facility, there's clarity on what we're going with. But at the end of the day, some of that information we just feel like is ours until we get to game day.
Sure. And a quick follow-up, if you will. Expectations from afar from those who, I guess, making projections and predictions don't seem to be very high. Is that something that you and the players welcome and embrace with how it seemed to work at your advantage last year?
Absolutely. I think there's two things to that. I think that's right where the Cats want to be. Chip on our shoulder, a little bit of edge to us, underdog mentality in the way that we move every single day, and also coupling that with an understanding that the worst thing we can do is pay attention to, the outside noise, any interference that could get in our way. I think this group, when we're at our best, we focus just on daily improvement and what we can control today to make sure that we're where we want to be tomorrow. Been really impressed with the way that our guys have handled that through camp. But now we're into game prep mode. It can be much easier to start letting your attention fade into other spaces. We just need to continue to stay focused on understanding our opponents, staying focused on us, and understand that the best version of us shows up with the underdog mentality with the chip on our shoulder.
So when you talk about the quarterback position, obviously he might be there, even if he doesn't win the starting job. How important is his intelligence just in terms of the experience he has by that last year? He said he'd go out and play Kentucky right now because he knows that team, he knows how to attack that defense. Having that knowledge, how important is that, not just for the quarterback room, but maybe for just the offense?
I think it's important for everybody. At the end of the day, Mike has played a lot of football in the SEC. Whether he's taking the first snap, from center, or just to utilize as an incredible resource to that rest of the room and in their preparation. It's absolutely invaluable at any position, but specifically the quarterback position. That experience is, and I'll mention Ryan Helinski as well. Ryan Helinski's played a lot of football. His experience within that room, you can't put a value on that.
You mentioned the development of the offensive line this offseason. Is there clarity on the starting five for those positions, specifically at the center spot?
Yeah, we do feel like we're getting there. Jackson Carcello and Jack Bailey have both been repping there, but feel like we've started to build some continuity. I think one of the reasons we've seen such great development, specifically in the O-line room and the quarterback room, is strictly the competition that exists. I mean, we all know this. When there's competition in a room, you have a tendency to see everyone improve, and that certainly has been the case through fall camp with the O-line.
NCAA announced that you're looking at scholarship work that's going up to 105 next season. It's 20 more to work with. You talked with the administration all about how many of those football's going to get and where you personally want to allocate those.
There's been a lot of conversations, and there's so many layers to it. Those conversations will be ongoing. I think the thing that is really important to us is making sure that in this new landscape we stay true to our values, but then also find the things that we can leverage best. And we had a conversation today as a team. Earlier in camp we talked about program objectives. Today we talked about team goals, and the number one goal of this program will be to make sure that every young man that comes into this program out of high school earns a Northwestern degree. And that's something that as we navigate those scholarships, you better be really buttoned up with your scouting. You better make sure you're bringing in a young man that values a Northwestern degree, but also understands what it looks like to play on a championship level program in the Big Ten and embraces that. I think with those scholarships now turning into equivalencies, there's some really creative ways that we can look to leverage earning a Northwestern degree, explore still the potential of having some walk-ons and maybe not fully utilizing all 105 and allowing individuals to earn that opportunity while making sure they're earning a Northwestern degree. But specifically, those in our administration, Jacob Schmidt with True NU, who's very aware of the landscape, Luke Valerius, our general manager of roster development and retention, those are things that are being talked about daily, and it's going to be quite a challenge moving forward. But with that challenge, I think there's some really neat opportunities for us moving forward into next season.
Coach Christian Smith is second-year defensive line coach. Came in here last year and really made a big difference in that defensive line and their production. How is that now floated over to this year in 2024? And the depth of that room from a year ago. Yeah,
it's. I remember looking over at his indies that first spring and saying, "My gosh, how are we going to be a four down front? We have 7 guys practicing right now." And the job that he's done, not only on the field with that group's development, but also within recruiting. I mean, you look over that D-line room now; it's like a small army over there. The depth that they're playing with. So excited where that group is at. We could talk about all the names in that room that everyone knows about, but what I really get excited about is the development that's happening with a Jaden Cameron that hasn't played much football for us but continues to improve at defensive end. I look at a Tyler Gant and some of the development that he's shown. Jalen Pate, who was coming off a knee injury last year, that really started to catch his stride late in the season, and where he's gotten to this point. So impressed with the work that Coach Smith has done, and really excited about not only the